water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, the four nations lived together in harmony. Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Only the Avatar, master of all four elements, could stop them. But when the world needed him most, he vanished. But unbeknownst to the Avatar, there was in fact a fifth, seldom remembered kingdom. One where people could bend the minds of others to their will. These were the Heartbenders, and if combined with the Avatar, they unleashed the ultimate power to combat the destruction of the planet. And this warrior is Captain Planet!
Captain Planet.
He's our hero.
I
I am the last Heartbender, Mediocrity 4.
I am the biggest Toph fanboy in the universe. I'm even wearing a green shirt for it today. I am dude, what the heck. I like Toph almost as... Actually, I like Toph even more than I like Renora. That's how much I love Toph.
I do too. Toph is like one of my favorite characters ever, but we'll get to that later. We are talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it is just us two. It was kind of hard to schedule people on Wednesdays, and we're kind of busy the other days with mostly me with Ruby stuff. And before we get started, I just want to say I just hit 300 subscribers, so thank you all if you're among those subscribers. And if you're not one of those subscribers, you should become one of those subscribers. I have a Q&A video coming Friday. It's actually going to be a live stream. I'm just going to answer questions and talk about myself and kind of how I got from where I started to where I am now, going all the way back to like the first stories I wrote and all that stuff. So I just want to plug that here at the beginning before we get started. That way I didn't have to derail it sometime, and that way you all know right off the bat. But yeah, we are talking about Avatar.
We are
one
for this.
Yeah, one of the best shows ever.
Okay, it's for me. It's without question. It's the greatest animated show of all time, including anime.
Oh, especially anime.
Especially including anime. Actually, funny thing. So
Fight
I can
me,
tell
fanboys.
I can tell media this now. It's just better. I mean, there's so many things that are better. We're gonna get into all the things that make it better than any anime, and I would argue it's one of the greatest TV shows period of all time. I was actually at the earlier this week. I was at the guy who makes this guy makes custom shirts for me out in Burbank, and he's like 45, and he had another like a suit maker with him, and he was they were both talking, and I was like, yeah. We were trying to get, he was trying, because he works in his own garage, so he's like trying to get Star Wars working on the DVD player. And I was just like, oh yeah, I just watched Avatar. And he's like, Avatar? That show's the best! And it's so cool, like you see all these people like from all ages, like even dudes that are like in their 40s, like, no, Avatar, it's the best show ever. Like I think that says a lot. That was really cool that we were going to do this podcast, and that was something that I went through. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, I was a bit of a latecomer to Avatar. I didn't watch until I was in high school when I actually watched it. I had seen like a few episodes when it was first coming on, but I didn't watch a lot of Nickelodeon. I simply just did not watch a lot. I simply just never tuned into Nickelodeon. I didn't even know what Avatar was until everybody else was already having like Avatar backpacks and stuff like that. And telling me about it, so I didn't watch it until I was in high school. And even then, I only watched it on like reruns because this would have been at like 2010, 2011, which is long after Cartoon Network had like circled the drain.
Yeah.
Which that was the show, that was the channel I watched religiously growing up. Like it was either that or Disney Channel, which only thing I watched on Disney Channel was like Kim Possible and like Gargoyles back when that was on, but that would have been like late 90s when that was on.
I watched Gargoyles too. I forgot Gargoyles was even on Disney Channel, but
they're a great show, but it was definitely just a really shallow cash grab to try to cash in on that Batman the Animated Series audience.
Yeah.
So the show.
Yeah,
I tried finding. Yeah, you can say your background. I was just gonna say that, like, I tried finding like what inspired them, but really it was just, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had like people throwing fire and water at each other. Like, their biggest inspiration was being trapped in the Arctic. I was reading about explorers trapped in the Antarctic or something at one point.
I know that Brian Konietzko, of one of the two, the guy who doesn't look like Aang. So Michael Dante DiMartino looks like Aang. That's the joke. And Brian Konietzko doesn't look like Aang. So I know he was very into like martial arts and things like that. I think both of them were taking lessons at the point, or at the very least, I know Brian was like really into kung fu and things like that. And he's the guy who brought Sifu Kisu, who's the guy who, you know, kind of modeled or like inspired the actual moves for the show. He brought him in, so I know that maybe that's part of it as well. But I know the joke because I've watched all the commentaries multiple times. I know one of the jokes they would say is that like, hey, we just magic karate. People like magic karate. It's great. So I don't know how much of it.
Oh, trust me, magical martial arts will get you really far with any kind of creative endeavor. Just look at the 1970s Hong Kong action movie scene. Jesus.
Yeah. So
or just look at Naruto. I mean, that's all about magical ninjas, and that show's been on for a long time.
Yeah. So for me, I watched a ton of Nickelodeon, and I also watched a ton of Cartoon Network. I didn't watch very much Disney Channel, so I watched both Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon. For me, they were two channels right after each other. So for me, Cartoon Network was 57 and Nickelodeon was 56. I still remember the channel names even all the way back then.
I don't. I remember that when I was a really little kid, like before I ever had cable, Warner Brothers was on channel 11. That's all I remember.
Okay, gotcha.
Kids WB11, St. Louis.
I do remember Warner Brothers was really awesome for a while. Anyway, so at that point, by the time Avatar came out, so I was in 8th grade. I'm 26 now, so I'm a couple years older than Media, and I think I got into the show during the show. So I had watched anime before, and like actual anime. First of all, I watched, if you count Pokemon and you count Yu-Gi-Oh! And Zoids. Those were the 3 anime that I actually watched and didn't hate. But then when they had like Toonami and stuff like that, they would try to show some other, like especially Dragon Ball Z. I fucking despised Dragon Ball Z, and I still despise it with all my being. I think it's a terrible, terrible show. And I can.
You know what? There's a joke that kids don't have an attention span. I beg to differ. Kids love Dragon Ball Z.
If kids love Dragon Ball, I didn't have an attention span, obviously, because I hated Dragon Ball Z, and that honestly turned me off from Avatar. So when Nickelodeon started running their ads for Avatar, I was like, "Fuck!" Now I was already pissed that Cartoon Network was doing so much anime, and I was like, "Fuck!" Now Nickelodeon's doing anime too. God damn it, this sucks. And the beginning of the show, like I think I watched like an episode here or there, and I was like, "Man, like." This is such a kid's show. Like, at least I know it's like, and it's not as funny as like their normal shit. So it's like, man, because by that point I was watching less Nickelodeon because I was in 8th grade, I think it was. Then in freshman year of high school, when I was 13 or 14 or whatever it was, my brother and my sister, and I still remember this to this day, my brother and my sister were down in the room where we watched TV. They had the TV on, and the episode, I still remember to this day, the episode that it was the library. And I saw Toph, and she made the joke about, there it is. That's what it'll sound like when one of you spots it. And I laughed my ass off at that. It's like, oh, that's that funny. And then I watched it, and they had like a goal. It was like, I don't know. And after that, I watched that episode. I think I watched the desert episode of them the next. And then I jumped on the computer. I found like a place where I could actually watch all the episodes up until then. Watched it. I watched all the episodes I could and finish. I got into that was the first show I really got into any sort of fandom. I joined forums. That's how I started writing fan fiction. This is the show that inspired me to become an author, actually. That makes me want to write books. I am writing a book right now. Who knows if it ever gets big? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Either way, it's a TV show that actually, along with Harry Potter, that got me to do it, and that was Avatar. So Avatar was huge for me. That was when I became a true nerd. Was Avatar. And really, it's Toph. So that's why Toph is my first and only anime waifu ever. Because right after that came out, I met my fiance. and then I had no need for anime waifus anymore. But Toph was the one. That was the one.
Well, so Toph is simply the best. As I said, like every day when I was rewatching it recently.
Yeah, I have so many comments. Hold on, what are my comments like? Literally, because I wrote. I just told media I wrote almost 12,000 words worth of notes. Toph is amazing. What else did I say? Stuff like that. Toph is the best. Toph is win. Yeah, like half my comments are that. That's yeah.
My first episode, I kind of want to say was the first episode. I think I want to say it was the Boy Trapped in Ice Part 1 or whatever the name of those episodes are.
The Boy in the Iceberg?
Yeah, the Boy in the Iceberg. I want to say it was that, but if it wasn't that, it was the Blue Spirit where Zuko actually rescues Aang.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's a good one. Yeah, and I remember thinking the wait between books 2 and 3 was long for Avatar because of what like we're used to waiting for. Now with Ruby, that's like nothing. Or like waiting for the next Star Wars film and stuff like that. That's nothing. We're waiting for Harry Potter.
Yeah.
But back then, that was a big deal. And that show has been my favorite show ever since Volume 2 finished, basically. And I have never looked back since then. And I haven't watched it in 7 years. Actually, though, Korra really ruined original Avatar for me, like a lot. So, but after watching again this time, it's even better than it was the first time. The first times I watched it, the first million times I watched it. So, I think that's pretty. I'm happy that I like it even more now. I see there's somebody in a baseball.
Yeah, that's my dad.
Jersey.
He's rooting for the Yankees since the Cardinals aren't in the playoffs.
Oh, cool. I'm from New Jersey, so I root for the Yankees. I can't hear anything though. Did you mute yourself?
No, I'm on push to talk.
Oh yeah. Push to talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't hear it unless I hit the certain key.
Nice little cameo. The last 2 times we've done this, we've had cameos from.
Well, that's because I'm in the basement and people are always like going up and down the stairs and stuff.
Studio.
Yeah, and like and we kind of share the space for our various work. Like that's his piano right there.
I was gonna say I didn't know you played piano. I was wondering why that was there, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway. So the fact that I'm pretty sure the Blue Spirit was the first episode I watched, kind of spoiled the big like character arc that is Zuko, for me, because my first impression of Zuko was this kind of like neutral force, which is not the case. In fact, I was kind of surprised at like how back and forth he goes throughout the series. But I didn't have to worry about wait times or anything like that because, like, by the time I started actually watching it with any kind of regularity, it was all reruns anyway on Nickelodeon.
Yeah, did you watch it after the show was done, basically, or?
Oh yeah, it was long after. It was probably like it had probably been done for like five years by the time I actually started watching it with any kind of regularity.
I was fortunate enough to catch it in the middle of Volume 2 of Book 2, and that's I think a big reason why it shaped me so much as a fictional work, basically. As a single fictional work, I think the top 3 for me are Avatar, Calvin and Hobbes, and Harry Potter. Those are the big 3. But I'd say
are we talking quality or how much they impacted us?
Both, honestly.
Because if we're talking quality, it would go Star Wars. Don't know what number. I don't know what the other one is. Probably, Batman.
Star Wars would be number 4 for me.
That would be Star Wars, Batman, and probably like Jurassic Park or Lord of the Rings or something like that. But as far as like how much they impacted me, it would go Star Wars, Naruto, and oddly enough, Winnie the Pooh.
Nice. Winnie the Pooh is actually awesome. I think I went to see the last movie with my fiance in theaters when it
so underrated. So underrated.
It was good. It was good. It was a good.
It got no love. Well, the critics loved it.
It was a good film. I enjoyed it as
the critics loved it, but nobody watched it. Nobody watched it. Disney didn't market it at all. Like, I don't think there was any trailers or anything online or anything for it.
It was genuinely good too. Yeah, that sucks. But yeah, no, I mean, I think luckily I was not ruined on Zuko because the 2 episodes I watched had very little or like none of him in it because it was the library and the desert. He was either not in it or not in it very much. So
that's the mascot for the local radio station.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
You guys actually just got our big local radio station over where you are. You guys have the Woody Show now.
Oh, I didn't realize that was from California.
Yeah, that's in Los Angeles. Well, okay, the guys originally were in San Francisco, then they got fired, then they went to St. Louis, and then now they got massive, and so now they're in like New Mexico, Colorado, Seattle or Portland, and maybe even one other place. They blew up.
Yeah, radio's definitely a lot different now than it was, say, like 20 years ago.
Yeah. So that's kind of our backgrounds on it. I think it's a big deal for both of us. It's a bigger deal for me, I would say. This was like my come to Jesus moment for nerddom and
like for me, for you, it's obviously your heart's like in
this
it,
and Harry
like
are just
heavily. For me, it's much more like just from an intellectual standpoint, like emotionally, I'm not as invested in it as a lot of fans are. I came into it later, so I was able to just be like, oh yeah, this is like just one of the most solid shows I've ever watched, and never really went with few exceptions. It hasn't like really gone beyond that. One of those exceptions being Toph being just simply the best.
Yeah, she seriously is. Like,
Iroh would be up there too. There's some like really good episodes, like The Storm, which I think wasn't that in book.
The Storm. Was that in book that's 1? Actually a volume 1 episode.
Yeah, that was in book 1. That was like when I was rewatching it this time. I was like, yeah, this is a good show. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's solid. It's solid, which is really the only thing a TV show needs to be. Because I mean, you get more than one season, you're gonna have a few dud episodes. So just being overall solid is the only thing you can really hope for with the TV show. But rewatching it this time, when I got to The Storm, that was that moment where I was just like, this really is something special. This really is the kind of show that inspires people and that people would consider their favorite, not just simply objectively the best. It's up there, but something that's like really meaningful. Like we're gonna do a Batman podcast eventually, and the episode for that for me in Batman was the first one was Scarecrow. The first, really any episode was Scarecrow, but the first episode with Scarecrow was that moment for me where I was like, this is more than it's like episode 3, I think. Like this is more than just a solid show. This is something that's like important.
That was a really good one. I think my 2 favorites of the ones I've seen so far are that one and the Poison Ivy. The first Poison Ivy.
Poison Ivy's good. And that one like plays in stuff later because Harvey did, and they make gags in it, and like they make a gag about it in the episode Almost Got Him, which is like one of the like more famous episodes.
Yeah, it's been around like 15 years since I've watched Batman the Animated Series, so definitely don't spoil me on any of that yet. I won't. It's almost like I'm watching it for the first time again. It's crazy. But yeah, so I think I'd actually like to skip or like switch around what we're doing.
All right.
I'd like to talk about the production design, like the animation, the music, and the voice acting before we talk about the plot and characters.
Yeah. I mean, that was just a fast and loose list anyway.
Yeah. So, but it is important because they do all of these things actually very well. I mean, unlike the movie that shall not be named, it actually was cast very well overall.
Overall.
I would say, yeah. I mean, the standouts for me, and you could disagree. I think I like Jack DeSena as Sokka, but the big ones are Dante Bosco as Zuko is fantastic. Mako as Iroh is, I mean, you can't really top that.
Of course.
Grey Delisle as Azula, just, I mean, she pretty much knocks everything out of the park. There's a reason why she's hired for everything. But I'd even probably give number 1 to Mark Hamill as Ozai. Mark Hamill as Ozai is, oh my god, he makes that character.
He is the only person who could have made that kind of character work.
Yeah. It's crazy how much he adds to Ozai's, like, how intimidating Ozai is just with his voice. He's the only one that, like, really makes the character. Because, I mean, Mako was amazing, but even when they lost Mako, Iroh was still Iroh. He didn't sound the same, but he was still Iroh. You don't have Mark Hamill, Ozai is not Ozai anymore. Because that's one of the things I remember is when you see him for the first time, he doesn't look, any extremely more intimidating than anybody else than you would expect. It's the voice is really
like and that kind of goes to show that, like, Iroh, like, Mako's performance is legendary and stuff, but
of course,
he's such a well-written character that plenty of people could have played him. To talk about a different Mako role, my biggest complaint about Samurai Jack Season 5 was Aku. Mako was Aku, and the person they got to replace him for Season 5 he didn't do it. He just didn't have it. He didn't have what it took to bring a character like Aku to life. And I'd say the same thing would go with Mark Hamill as Ozai. Thankfully, we will never see a version of Ozai without Mark Hamill. But if we were to, it would not be the same.
Yeah, the guy who replaced Iroh did a decent job, I think. Actually, I mean, he's not going to be perfect. It's not possible.
Yeah, I think it's actually the same guy.
Really?
I'm pretty sure it's the same guy.
He did if it's true, he did a better job doing Iroh than he did doing Aku, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about the voice acting? What would your comments be about that?
Unpopular opinion. Other than the, like, big standouts we've already named, I think the voice acting in Avatar is one of its weaker aspects. There's a lot of, like, with all the, like, major characters, their voices definitely grew on me by the end of the first season, but it was kind of rough getting into the characters at first because of the performances. Even the guy who plays Sokka, and like, especially Aang, which I get that they're kids, they're like 12, and so they have those, like, kid voices, but it's just, there's kind of a dissonance with a lot of the, like, character designs and the voices. It's not quite He-Man level dissonance.
Yeah.
But what is?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's funny thing is, again, and I'm biased because Toph is the best, but I actually think Jesse Flower does a better job as Toph than the other three mains do, to be honest. And even her performance isn't perfect at times. It's less stellar than people like Dante Bosco and Mako. And
see, when I first watched the show, Dante Bosco was the one that, like, really did not sit well with me. There's just something about his voice that that was kind of grating, but there's more to vocal performance than just putting on a funny voice, or a fun voice rather. And all the emotions Zuko needed to portray, Dante Bosco knocked it out of the park. It's just his actual, like, and this is just something no amount of talent could, like, work past, is that his voice is just not my thing. Like, in all his roles, his actual, like, speaking voice, all his it's just, like, the actual tone of his voice is just kind of like,
gotcha.
It just doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, and I actually personally love his voice. So I mean, it's very unique. So it is kind of a love or hate thing. I can totally understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's not like Maka. It's not like Maka, who I could freaking listen to read the Yellow Pages and I'd be fine.
Oh, I could do the same thing with. I mean, yeah, Mako's is even better, but I actually like Dante Bosco's voice, but it is extremely unique, and you are gonna either love it or hate it. So I can understand that.
Although it does suit well with the, like, kind of like pity type lines, like, that's rough, buddy.
It does fit well. I don't. That was one of the notes I took. It's like, why is that line of all lines such a meme when there are so many other funnier things that people say in the show? Like, why is that one that's such a meme now? Don't understand that.
Just because, like, the absurdity of the situation. We're like, well, my girlfriend turned into the moon. That's rough. Like, oh, that's all you have to say, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, what do you say when someone tells you that their first girlfriend turned into the moon?
I don't know. I actually think Suki handled it really well too, but that's later in the show. So, I mean, yeah, the voice acting is not perfect, but the stellar performances are there where you need them, I think. And I don't think anybody really drops the ball big time, personally. I'll agree that Aang's voice actor is more grating in the beginning than he is later on. When his voice drops a bit, Aang sounds like he's more likable, personally, I think. And he has more of a presence. As far as animation, I know they use 2 different animation studios. They both
and they outsourced a lot of it to was it Korea?
South Korea. That's where I think all of it was basically outsourced to. They didn't do any of it themselves. Like,
which, granted, there's a huge like animation hub in Korea, so there are a lot of studios all around the world outsource a lot of their work to Korea. Yeah, fun fact for you anime lovers. Your favorite anime? Probably not made in Japan. Probably made in Korea. Written in Japan and headed up by a Japanese studio, but most of that animation is done in Korea. Same thing happened.
It's the real anime.
And I mean, and it's not just the typical like anime stuff, and it's not even stuff that like blurs the line of anime. Batman the Animated Series, a lot of the stuff got outsourced to Korea. Like, that's just how far-reach... Disney outsources a lot of stuff to Korea. That's how far-reaching the whole, like, Korean animation market is. And they do it for cheap, and they do it for cheap, but enough to where, like, it helps keep their economy afloat, and it helps keep our economy afloat. It helps Japan keep their economy afloat, because there's a lot of sharing. And I mean, I could probably even do a major like essay or something about like kind of the history of the cultural osmosis that is the East and West post World War II.
Oh yeah, I mean,
the infinite stacking of rip-offs.
Honestly, if you just did a video on Korean animation on all that stuff, you'd probably get a shitload of views on that on your channel media. So you should probably do that.
Yeah, I'm not as good at research though.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm much better at spitballing and acting like I know what I'm talking about.
Gotcha. But Korea does a good job. I mean, I think the animation of the show is pretty good. Like, it's not. I wouldn't say it's the hallmark of the show. I think they definitely put more. The last.
There's a lot of details, and this had to have been a really high budget for a TV show.
Oh yeah, it's 2005.
Yeah, and granted, this was kind of like a golden age of TV animation where most major TV shows, like even something like more medial budget, like Ed, Edd n Eddy, looked fantastic.
Oh yeah, Ed, Edd n Eddy looked awesome for what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just kind of the culture. That was kind of where Nickelodeon was at, and Cartoon Network was there too, and Disney was kind of always there, even before there was television animation. Back when it was just all theatrical stuff. Which, I mean, I could also do a video about theatrical animation and how much I freaking love Fleischer's Superman. How it's like one of the greatest things ever made. But yeah.
I think they do a good job.
There's a lot of like nice little details, like how things move and interact with each other. Google the 12 principles of animation, and Avatar hits all those in spades and so much more. But one thing I really wanted to address was the choreography.
Yeah, the choreography. That was literally the next thing I was going to talk about too. RWBY fans, eat your heart out, because this is how you're supposed to do fight scenes. There is no like
this
volume
really is
this like this volume they got slightly better. Or this volume is like no. I mean, I actually think it does kind of get better and better as it goes a little bit. But like,
well, they got more.
The whole time.
Nickelodeon slowly opened up their wallets more and more for the show as it carried on.
Yeah. Oh no, you can tell the Sozin's Comet 5 episodes. Oh my god, the animation, some of the animation they do there looks like almost like movie quality good. You can see the difference. But no, I mean the fighting in this show it's amazing that everything in the show is this good. Like when you have the plot as good as it is, and then you have the fighting that's also this great. Like the fact they actually base everything on the real kung fu moves.
And that's really what it is. Is that all the bending stuff is like there's 4 different types of bending, and each one of them is actually based on a different martial art. And there's a lot of like nice little details with that. Like someone pointed out in a meme that one of the moves that Zuko does in his fight with Azula. And in the
where he,
end,
like, spins around on the ground where he knocks.
No, it's he does a water bending. He does a fire bending move by doing like the motions of a water bending move, and that like knocks Azula like out of like that lands a hit on Azula. I'm not sure if that's where it was at. Again, like this was a meme, and this was like about a week after I had finished watching it. But there's apparently a part where Zuko does like this water bending motion to fire bend, and it like is super effective and stuff like there's actually like a really plot relevant version of that with the lightning redirection. Yeah, Iroh invented that by watching waterbenders work. And there's a lot of like just really neat stuff.
And that also plays into one of their themes that goes throughout the show, which is like everything integrates so freaking well in the show.
Avatar is one of the most well-realized fictional worlds out there.
Oh yeah, ever. I would say another thing that actually really helps is that so they brought in a kung fu master to
as you do,
yeah. And it looks great. Like it works. Like you can see the differences in the moves for each bending and everything, and then even each character. One of the coolest things they did was they wanted to do a specific style of kung fu for Toph, and it's called praying mantis style. And their main guy, who's a big expert, actually didn't really know it that well, so they brought in another guy. They actually brought in a separate martial artist, a separate kung fu master, just for Toph, just for her for her earthbending style. So like that's the commitment and the level that they went to make this kind of stuff happen, which is really cool. And Toph, out of anybody, I would say, and again biased because we both fucking adore Toph, but she has the most unique fighting style out of anybody in the show, I would say. And you can see that because she has the one.
Yeah, I mean she's basically Daredevil if Daredevil was also Terra from Teen Titans.
Yeah, and the best.
And simply the best.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no. There's so many scenes I can think of where the fights are just. They make them so big and so epic. Yet they're rooted in something that is actually real and effective in real life, in that it's rooted in actual kung fu. And that balances it so well. It makes it look right. It makes you not question what they're doing. Whereas you watch you watch the what's one of my favorite fight scenes is the one between the last episode of book 2, where Zuko decides to fight Aang, and instead of Azula, so you have that 4-way battle between Azula, Zuko, Katara, and Aang, and they're doing so many big epic things, but it's all rooted in actual moves. So it's not like Ruby, and I have to make comparisons because that's like the nerdy show that I'm crazy into right now, and it's a show that
and it's kind of what my channel is built around.
Yeah, so we can compare. I think I couldn't help but make a lot of comparisons, and Ruby, so much of it is just flourishes because of flourishes, Whereas with Avatar, everything's based in something that's effective in real life, and yet because of the bending, it looks so epic and fantastical and all that. It's such a cool balance in that you're not questioning why they're doing certain things. I never question why they're doing certain moves, where in Ruby, I'm like, why did they do that? Or why did they do that? That doesn't look right. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Like,
well, and that goes with how well realized Avatar is. Like just that opening monologue, which I parodied at the beginning from the outset of this podcast. We know we know the bending moves, and we see the martial arts, and a lot of people won't like pick up on the like smaller detail, like what kind of martial arts it is, but there is a distinct visual difference with the bending and a physical difference with how they move. You don't get that in most anime, or really most TV shows, and I'm picking on anime here because most TV shows will just have like a fight scene be like a couple punches and like people pushing each other, Batman the Animated Series does. Like Batman the Animated Series, I think has like 1 or 2 actual martial arts fights in its entire 109 episode run, and it's actually like 2 of the weaker episodes of the entire deal. But the Batman the Animated Series was not even really an action show. It was like freaking kids' first detective series.
Yeah.
Whereas something like I'm going to pick on Dragon Ball. I know you don't like Dragon Ball Z, but I'm actually going to highlight one of its flaws.
Yay.
And that is just how repetitive a lot of the fights are. Like, every single person's ability is just punch really fast and shoot amorphous energy beams from their hands. And so the enjoyment of those fights comes, one, from the sound design. Like, that's probably Dragon Ball's like most undisputedly strongest quality, is that like you can listen to those fights, and it just gets you pumped up. And the other one being like kind of the plot stuff, like to compare there's a video out there that compares Goku vs Frieza from the Namek arc to Super Saiyan Blue Goku vs Golden Frieza from Dragon Ball Super, and why the Super fight is so much worse in like every single way, because it doesn't have any dramatic stakes. Because Frieza's wanting to blow up the planet, but Beerus is right there, and Beerus is not going to let Frieza blow up the planet, and we know that Beerus is on like a whole nother level from anybody else in the show at that point. And it also already established Whis' time reversal thing, and so even if something does happen and the planet does blow up, he just repair it. So there's no reason that fight lasted like 10 episodes. And it's the worst part of Dragon Ball Super. Like, even as somebody who likes Dragon Ball just fine, that entire arc was the worst thing Dragon Ball has ever done. And I'm including like GT. I might even include Dragon Ball Evolution in that insult. The Golden Frieza fight is the worst. But you don't get that kind of repetitiveness with Avatar, in part because of the different choreography, the different styles and flourishes, and watching the different powers interact with each other. And 2, because of the writing. Every fight matters. Every fight leads to some kind of progression, either within the plot, within like the stakes of the world, or within the stakes of the like person versus self conflict, especially with Zuko fights. Zuko fights are just like, I'm not sure how it was for you, since again, like, first episode I watched was the episode where he saved Aang, so every Zuko fight was just like, it's like that scene in the Star Wars trailer where Kylo Ren has it like locked onto Leia, and he's just like,
Zuko fights have so
that's
much
like
tension.
Every second of any fight Zuko is ever a part of.
Zuko fights have so much tension, and I'll say, yeah, my favorite fight scene, after having watched all of them, was Azula versus Zuko at the very end.
Yes, same.
Zuko versus, I mean, we'll get into that when we get there. Azula's downfall is one of the most masterfully done things ever. I mean, we'll get to Zuko.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, when it got to that point, I was on Discord just like, Stop
Oh,
it.
God,
Stop it. Stop trying to get me to care about Azula. I'm supposed to hate her. Now I'm liking her and sympathizing with her and relating to her.
insane.
And she's becoming like this tragic character. I was just like, no, stop it.
It's beyond amazing. So I don't know. Maybe we can go into more detail about the fight scenes some other time with this show, but that would actually be pretty interesting to do sometime, like a comparison between Avatar's fights and Ruby's fights specifically.
Yeah,
But
Ruby. The biggest problem with Ruby. Well, there's a lot of problems with Ruby's
like,
fight scenes.
you just
I
gotta give up
made
everything.
like a 10-minute video on it, and I didn't really hit the tip of the iceberg on a lot of the issues. And I said in the last podcast, but stuff like the animators not communicating and making the different bits be cohesive. Stuff like we don't know how strong, like the aura is still kind of this undefined thing, this like bullcrap question mark. Semblances, we still don't know what a lot of character semblances are or what their limits are. We like there's still a lot of stuff about Ruby, like just how fight scenes even work in Ruby, and for an action show that is like one of the first things you need to establish. Like the fact that it wasn't until volume 3 that we even got the like what it looks like when someone's aura breaks is terrible. And there's no undoing that. There's no retconning that. They can have all the flashback fights where that happens in the world, and it won't fix the fact that we didn't know about that until halfway through volume 3.
Yeah, Avatar basically gets everything right from the get-go. The only exception to that being the fact that the show was a little bit too lighthearted and childish in the beginning, and then it matures over time. It's really the only thing I can say.
And I'm
Just a
kind of
little
glad
bit.
it does it like that,
Yeah, no,
because
it-
this is a kid's show. And like I'm
it works
gonna
out in
definitely
that
go
way.
on about that when we talk about when we do the Batman podcast, but like these are kids shows, and
Yeah.
kids can handle a lot more than a lot of people give them credit for,
Oh hell yeah!
but they can't.
I
But
didn't
there is a limit.
I didn't realize how like relatively dark this show actually was, like with how much they actually were losing most of the time and everything. You know, like people got fucked up in this show. You know, like it's.
Oh
not,
yeah, and I mean
they
that's
actually
just
kill
good
off-
writing.
They actually kill off a character, and I forgot about that. So
Yeah, it's just well written, and the stakes, and like the Fire Nation is always a threat. Like they are never reduced to fodder.
no, never. With that said, then yeah, let's get to the plot. Then we'll do plot, and then we'll summarize the characters afterwards. We're not gonna like necessarily go episode by episode, but I would kind of like to touch on things because since there's only 2 of us, we can spend more time talking.
Yeah, we
about
could
each
definitely.
thing, so.
Yeah, we could definitely spend a lot more time.
One thing I have to rant about first is something I was just arguing about somebody within our Discord, and of course I was right. Is that if you want to make character, you got to establish your characters right from the outset, okay? And that was the first.
And not in the like, my name is blah, 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 blah. I am such and such years old from this place and this time. Like, don't do it like that. Do it like.
Yeah.
Actually, something Ruby did really well was establishing Ruby as a character from the outset, and her nerdiness. Like, one of the first lines she says is, "You're a huntress, can I have your autograph?" Stuff like that. Like, Ruby was a really well-realized character right off the bat, and like I said in my honest look on Ruby, yeah, she took a backseat in Volume 4, but it was kind of to give everyone else a chance to catch up.
Yep. Which Aang does at times too. I mean, they had an episode. I mean, Zuko alone, for example, amazing episode, and it's just Zuko. It doesn't even go back and forth between the main cast and Zuko. It's just Zuko. So yeah, you can. So you watch.
Is that the one where he writes like the ostrich thing?
Yeah, the ostrich thing.
And he teaches the kid how to like dual wield swords. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, that's a good. That's a good episode.
Yeah, it's a great episode. I mean, there's few episodes that aren't great episodes. There's just some that are greater than others in this show. So, but I mean, even the first episode, which when I first watched it, I didn't even like it because I had more other biases. But the one thing they did great is first 10 minutes, all of the main heroes that are there and the main villains have actual character, they have depth, they have flaws, they have quirks, they're actual characters, all of them from the first, not even from the end, by the end of the first episode, before the end of the first episode, like by the time the episode's halfway over, it's already like that. So I mean, they have flaws and quirks and everything, all from the very beginning. You know who they are, and that's really fucking impressive. And I mean, not even just that Ruby doesn't do that well. There's a lot of other shows or books or whatever that also fail at that too.
Yeah, which is why it's kind of an unfair comparison, but it's a comparison we have to make because of what we spend most of our time on this channel talking about, and the fact that this is what we're talking about right now. But yeah, it is kind of an unfair comparison comparing Ruby to Avatar.
If you're gonna or
even even comparing Ruby to Naruto, which I do a lot, it's kind of unfair. And one of these days, I would like a Naruto podcast. You probably won't be on it, dude. It'll probably just be like me and Sock and like maybe Kitty or someone and Robert. But
the one podcast I'm not on, unless I can actually binge through all of Naruto.
Play the games. Like, I love Naruto to death and stuff, but I would not want to subject anyone to all the episodes, or even if you skip all the filler stuff, you're still sitting through a lot of like faffing about. But that's kind of one of the enjoyments of it, which is why it works so well as a video game. Like, play the video games. Like, it works there.
Hey, technically, I could have time because we have a lot of Star Wars stuff to do. That we're
gonna spend, like, the next couple of
months on. We're gonna spend.
There's a lot of Star Wars stuff to get through.
So I mean, I'm excited for that too.
But, I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that stuff too. Yeah, no, but I don't know. That was the thing that struck me first, was after watching all this Ruby stuff, and then going back to Avatar for the first time in 7 years. And the first 10 minutes, I actually paused it, jumped into the Discord, and be like, "Oh my god, why can't Ruby do this?" Like, it's 10 minutes, and I already know so much about the characters.
I think I did something like that too.
It's crazy, and if you want another example, and I'll get to this later, but I had to mention, Toph is a masterclass in how to add a third wheel and make them a fan favorite instantly.
Yeah, make a fourth character.
I've never seen anything do that well. Nothing has ever done.
Not that late in the game.
I mean,
there's lots of shows that'll add a character like later on, and they end up being like the best character. But usually it's still pretty early on. Like like the Avengers, for instance. Like, going back to the original comic books, Captain America, the greatest Marvel superhero ever, and I know I'm wearing a Spider-Man shirt right now, but Spider-Man's a Captain America fan too, and he'd agree with me that Captain America is the best Avenger, and he didn't come into the comics as an Avenger for a while. There was a while where the Avengers were like Iron Man, Hulk, Thor, Ant-Man, and Wasp, and that was it. And then they added in Captain America later.
I'm a pleb and I don't actually read the comics. I just watch the movies, so I don't know that. But that's interesting.
The movies are great, though. They are. They add like so many. They add so many of the. They add so many of the best elements from the comics, and do it well.
Yeah. I mean, the episodes in the beginning, they're pretty good. I do like Jason Isaacs. Another voice comment is Jason Isaacs is the guy who played Lucius Malfoy. Him as Admiral Zhao is actually pretty awesome.
His performance is pretty good, and he's a great actor. But I don't know, just Admiral Zhao just seemed like a kind of shallow
Zhao,
character.
I think the difference between Zhao and Azula is one of the biggest reasons why Volume 2 or Book 2 and 3 are so much better than Book 1.
Yeah.
I honestly.
I do too.
As well as that plus Toph. Those are like the biggest reasons I think why books 2 and 3 are significantly. They're still, in my opinion, books 2 and 3 are significantly better than book 1. I still, even after watching this, book 2 of Avatar is the greatest season of TV ever, bar none. I will fight anybody on that. Was so. I like how they set up a lot of things. Like they set up Zook. Oh, okay. That's getting into character. Let's just do the plot then, I guess, real quick.
Here's some writing advice. Begin with the end in mind.
Yep.
Avatar does this. They set up Sozin's Comet. They set up they set up the Black Sun later on, but they definitely set up Sozin's Comet in season 1, which that impressed me.
Yeah, that was really smart. That was brilliant.
Because in that added the stakes where like, oh, we got a time limit to do all this.
They even in a way set up Zuko's character arc pretty well too, in that like you see just how much he cares about his father's approval, how overly obsessed he is with the Avatar. And there's a lot of little hints. I mean, Iroh, like with his little hints about destiny is a funny thing. That's a line that comes back. So they definitely do a good job with setting up all the characters and all the plot lines, like you said, from the very beginning. And I think that really helps. They have it's a clear goal from the very beginning, and that's one of the things that makes it such a great show. Is what they're trying to do the whole time.
Master all 4 elements, beat the Fire Lord, preferably before Sozin's Comet comes and ruins everything.
Yeah,
preferably.
That's basically what happens, except for he defeats him during Sozin's Comet.
Yeah,
which I actually think I appreciate that twist more now than I did originally, actually. And I think one of the things that was cool was the way they showed how Sozin's Comet benefited.
There's one of those things that like a lot of people that don't really know writing very well, like don't really know dramatic storytelling very well, they'll be like, oh, that's such a cop out, that's such a cliche. Like, there's a reason for that. It's called paying things off. Where it's just like, if they would have defeated him before Sozin's Comet, then it would have just left that big question mark, like, oh, we did it, yay.
Yeah, no, and it's
and like, oh, so Sozin's Comet was just kind of this arbitrary deadline thing, but having it before or during Sozin's Comet, it adds so much dramatic stakes to that entire like last 5 episodes, which are 5 of the best episodes in TV history, by the way. That's
And I think they do a very good job of showing how Sozin's Comet does benefit the good guys too. I mean, they see that. She did that with Iroh and Zhang Zhang. I mean, Zhang Zhang flying with fire was fucking dope. I loved that. But if you see that, and it benefits Aang too, technically, because he is a firebender. He's the Avatar. That makes him also a firebender. It benefits Zuko. So, it's not, at least they show that, yeah, it's bad, and it does raise the stakes, but at least they also show that it's still believable that they win even during Sozin's Comet. I guess that's my comment. That's an impressive thing.
You're kind of cutting out there.
You guys had cool.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you were kind of just cutting out there just a little bit. I got the gist of what you were saying though. That was that was an impressive thing. That part when like it kind of did that, but I can still make out what you were saying.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah, and I also really freaking love the Day of Black Sun episode because of that, and just Azula waiting there for them, like, we've known about this forever.
We're gonna spend the most time talking about the characters. I can guarantee.
Yeah.
And we're gonna save Toph for last because Toph is the best.
Yes, simply the best.
And they do a great job of setting up characters, even in the first season, that will actually come back in a way. I guess Boomy's in episode 5.
Yeah,
and he comes back later more than once, which is really cool. I think that's great. Like, that's just awesome.
That's kind of the benefit of having like an ongoing narrative and stuff.
Yeah. Well, this is. I think this is why for me Avatar is number 1, and for you Batman the Animated Series is number 1. For me, a consistent narrative is like that's like very important to me. Like I can enjoy things that don't have that, but pretty much all of my favorite things have that.
Yeah, the continuous narrative, and there are shows that strike a really good balance. Avatar does strike a really good balance with them. There's like each episode is an individual episode with its own beginning, middle, and end. Something I wish more animes would do, because that's a very Western idea, and that's why like Avatar, it blurs the line, but it's still definitely a product of American storytelling sensibilities. Is the fact that each episode is an individual, concise story, and then it just builds and builds and builds as one big continuous chain of events leading up to the end in a very logical way. Bar a few like throwaway stuff that gets thrown in like one episode, and then like one thing that raised a flag for me was Sokka's math in the Painted Woman episode. It never like comes back into play. Oh, looks like dude froze.
You're breaking out.
I don't know if it was you or me. I was just talking about the Painted Woman episode. Something that bothered me was Sokka's like timeline, his like super strict timeline that never gets brought up after that episode. But that was just kind of a thing for that episode. But there's stuff like that. But it's not like
Get out of here.
it's not like Batman the Animated Series where. It looks like I disconnected again. It's not like Batman the Animated Series where it's not like Batman the Animated where you can imagine lots of other adventures going on in between the episodes. Like it continues in a very logical way.
Yeah. Makes sense. I mean, I that is actually something I noticed, the way that the show is actually most of the episodes, besides some of the like there's 2-part or 3-part, or like the last 5 episodes are a whole thing together, right? But otherwise, it's like you said, the episodes are actually somewhat self-contained for them.
Yeah, and progress very logically from one episode to the next.
Yeah, and I actually didn't realize how much of a benefit, and I didn't notice, like, especially now comparing it to stuff like Ruby or other anime shows, and even other animes that I liked, that I was like, I noticed that, and I think it's like almost a strength of Avatar that it does this. It's kind of forces things to progress, and things have to actually get explained and solved and things like that. Whereas I think that's a big trap too, is that they keep thinking they're building tension. They just keep throwing out information, and they think, oh, that makes it more dramatic and more interesting. Like, you know, not to be a dick, but Murder of Birds, like anytime, and is like, he represents the Ruby fandom way too well, in that anytime any information happens, it's like, oh my god, this is the greatest fucking thing ever. That's like Ruby, like that's the way it works, is, and the writers think that's okay. That's just like giving information is like, oh, that makes the show so dramatic and interesting and amazing. Whereas Avatar, they had to get things done. Like they actually had to solve shit each episode, and that helped develop the characters so much more. They had to figure things out. They had to, not everything was resolved, but they had to resolve certain things by the end of each episode. And I think that really helped the characters grow so much. The thing is with Avatar is, Ruby needs to learn a lot from Avatar, because they're both character-driven shows, in my opinion. As much as the plot is well laid out, but the plot's actually really simple for Avatar.
Yeah, again, like it's master the 4 elements, beat the Fire Lord, preferably before Sozin's Comet. That's the entire plot. There you go.
That's it.
3 sentences.
And everything else about the show that makes it, I mean, there's a lot of other things, but the biggest thing is that these characters are so well fleshed out. Their interactions are amazing.
And there's so much more to it, because each episode has an individual story.
Yeah. And that helps develop these characters so much. And I think Ruby could have benefited from that a lot. And a lot of other shows too, not just Ruby. Like other shows
Ruby kind of had the downside of like such a short episode length, and
yeah,
which I believe is more of a benefit than it is a hindrance to Ruby, just because of like a lot of the reasons why it's so well watched and so overwatched is because you can watch the entire thing in like 3 hours. Like that's a serious benefit that Ruby has always had over any other show on any other medium. Whereas Avatar, like it's a bit more of an investment to even watch a single episode. Like you can, because you can watch 5 episodes of Ruby Volume 1 and the time it takes you to watch a single episode of Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 1.
Yeah. No, it's and then they'll have even like those, like there's certain storylines within the greater story are very well done. I mean, let's be honest. Why do you think all of us, and people ask this in the one of the Ruby questions, question answer things, are we gonna have a Bossing Say episode? Are we gonna have a Bossing Say arc? Bossing Say arc. Everybody wanted a Bossing Say arc. Why do you think everybody wanted a Bossing Say arc? Because the Bossing Say arc is one of the greatest arcs of all time in fiction. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, but considering how they bungled their version of the cheating exams, which is another one of what I consider one of the greatest arcs in animation history, and it's probably the best part of Naruto, and yeah, the cheating exams. And for my money, like every shonen type anime has a tournament arc. For my money, Naruto's was the best. The cheating exams were the best. And I could go, and I will, at a later date, go at length why. Main point being, just look at the Rock Lee vs. Gaara fight and compare that to any fight in Ruby. There's your reasons.
So I haven't watched Naruto, so let's talk about Bossing Say.
Yes, the conspiracy, paranoia, 1984.
Yeah, this is still my favorite part of the show ever overall. Like, if it's like my favorite arc ever, it's amazing. Like, it's set up well. I mean, already Toph's also in it. Great. And it's set up from back before they even get to Bossing Say, which is really interesting, which is great. It's they get the information that the Day of Black Sun is coming. They get that in the library, and then the Earth King, and that's how it starts. So it's basically the whole second half of book 2. I think starting episode 11, because that's the episode. I think the library is episode 11, I think, or 10.
Yeah, something like that. So one of my biggest complaints with book 1 was how little time they spent in the North Pole.
Yes.
Season 2 fixed that problem brilliantly by having half the book take place in Bossing Say. It was structurally the same thing. We just got a lot more time to sit and rest and have everything build for the final battle in Bossing Say, instead of it being like the next episode.
Yeah, and it's man, do they do a good job with it. It's getting there is a lot of those episodes are also brilliant. But then once they get there, it's amazing. Like they have issues from the beginning where they're not really trusted by that one stupid general guy who doesn't think he needs them, obviously, which was funny. By the way, just the episode that episode in itself was brilliant. Like the whole plans, like how they learn to take it down from the inside and everything. That episode's super cool. And then once they get into Bossing Say, I think this is like talking about Toph as a character, but like Toph is almost like the audience. She's kind of the Jean, but better. She's kind of the voice of like the audience a lot of the time, and it's interesting that she's the one saying,
like the audience, she's blind to everything going on.
Yeah. But she does say, like, a city, great rules, like, and that she's kind of predicting like how it's gonna happen. that's going to be a problem, basically. The Dai Li are just fucking awesome. So it's
There is no one bossing say.
The whole thing, like the way long can be. Yeah, the whole there's no war, the whole Judy thing, the brainwashing, and there's a lot of intrigue, and it's also really awesome.
It got creepy with Judy. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, rewatching it recently, it was just kind of like, this is like, this is kind of messed up.
It's genuinely unsettling. The way they have Judy is weird from the beginning. They have the replacement Judy, and then when they actually get underground and they see all the girls saying that they're Judy, that's creepy as fuck,
paying off the entire thing.
That is, they, like, again, just that little thing of they kept that going, of just the whole Judy thing. That in itself is like an example of why Avatar is so amazing. But that's really, really genuinely unsettling. The whole Jet being brainwashed thing, and the fact that they're looking for Appa while they're also trying to help the Earth King, I think that helped the show a lot too, that there's actually two things going on, and they have to kind of balance both of those things along with Zuko's journey at the same time. Like that, but all of that made sense and all fit together, which is something that Ruby really struggles with, is fitting all their storylines together, whereas Avatar fit all their storylines together brilliantly. And I also, one thing that I think is cool is that Long Feng even just admits to them, basically, I mean, I have control of everything, and I'm corrupted, and I'm brainwashing people, and I...
But if you ever want to see our Air Bison again...
Yeah. Like, he's like, okay, I see where this is going. There, he's like, he respects them enough to be like, okay, yeah, all right, I'll just tell them, and they can't do anything about it, and they do something about it, but, it's that's interesting. I love that. Another thing I really loved about it is the way they actually proved that they're right. Sokka noticed, like, nothing of that really actually feels contrived. Like, Long Feng got bitten by Appa. Sokka's like, oh shit, yeah, there's gonna be a mark on his leg. That actually makes sense. Everything actually makes sense. They call back to the drill. That's the final thing that proves it. All those are things that actually happen. They don't have to think of they don't overthink it. Something that happened previously.
Oh my goodness, they used the whole episodic structure of television to benefit the long form narrative. What a novel concept!
What a novel idea. And all of it just fits. Like, things were like, the funny thing is when you're watching through this, and another thing that was great is how Azula takes control of the Dai Li. The only thing that bothers me about that whole thing is that how did she learn about the Dai Li so easily? It's like one of the very few complaints I have on the show. But besides that, it makes sense of how she takes over the Dai Li and uses them to control. They already basically control the city. So with her being able to control them means she can control the city. That makes sense. The fact that she's able to claim power from Long Feng, that also makes sense. She's they even set that up. That was one of the coolest things I remember. That when the guy from the Dai Li goes and talks to Long Feng, they set that up. So he goes and talks to Long Feng the first time, says, the Dai Li will always be loyal to you, Long Feng. Then he comes back later and says, is the girl doing her part? Yeah. She's really taking control. She's scary and awe-inspiring all at the same time. And you see Long Feng take a second look at that. That is setting up the fact that Azula is able to wrest power from Long Feng. So it makes sense. It's not all out of nowhere that Azula's like, oh yeah, I've beaten you at your own game. Like, no, you actually see her being able to do that, and it all makes sense. You don't question any of that. It's like, oh shit, Azula is just that good. Yeah, I can see that. I'd probably listen to her too if I was one of those guys instead of listening to Long Feng. It all works. It all makes sense. It's like they literally thought out everything when they did that. Then they did that arc. It's almost clinical, but the show has so much heart. It's not clinical, but it felt so weird, like watching the show and not thinking, like they were so systematic in how perfectly they did everything in the show. But also they have all the heart, so it doesn't feel like just a clinical study in how to make a show. But it's also a clinical study in how to make a show. It's the gold. That's one of the reasons it's the gold standard.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, it just helps that Azula's like the kind of person that you can see pulling something like that off. Like that's the big thing. Like, you got to buy it. You gotta make the audience buy it. And yeah, Avatar does that pretty well. Yeah, I'm not gonna say it does it better than any other show, but it does it. It functions perfectly.
I think the thing that makes Avatar, in my opinion, the best show ever and one of the greatest works of like fiction of all time is that everything works, and there are some things that are exceptionally good. I think not everything is exceptionally good. I don't think that's possible, but everything works, and some things are exceptionally good enough to like take it over the edge instead of just making it a clinical study in things. I don't think there's anything that they do specifically poorly. I think there are some things that take it over the top. That is being Mark Hamill as Ozai is one of the things to me that takes the show over the top. And then a lot of the fighting and the choreography takes the show over the top. And some of the characters take the show over the top. Namely, Azula, Zuko, and Toph take the show over the top, I think. And those are things that make it that great. So, I mean, we could keep talking about the plot and how, like, you know, even after I love how Ba Sing Se ends on a negative note for Nickelodeon. I think that's crazy. I like that surprised me a lot, but I think that was amazing. Like, just how dark. Like, Aang literally dies for a second. Like, he even says that, like, I was gone and you brought me back. Like, he technically
with magic spirit water that was set up like at the end of the previous season.
Yep, they set that up, and
I'm willing. They got that from Lord of the Rings, though,
which is fine. That's cool. Like, I'm fine with things ripping off.
Like they got the whole idea for that from Lord of the Rings, but
really,
I mean, which fantasy series in the last 70 years hasn't ripped off several things wholesale from Tolkien?
And Lord of the Rings actually rips a lot of stuff off.
Yeah.
And I love Lord of the Rings. I'm not trying to. I actually love to do a Lord of the Rings podcast too sometime. But that's not talking shit on Lord of the Rings. Everything is just, you can't not do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, another thing. Speaking of things, borrowing Harry Potter musical, which by the way you should. It's amazing. Robert agreed. Yeah, a line in it that I did not read exactly from Avatar, and. If anybody's watched the Harry Potter musical, which has got to be at least a few people, it's got like 13 million views. The first thing, it's got a lot of millions of views. There's actually a line where Joe Walker, who's playing Lord Voldemort, says, "You're weak, just like your parents. They did not deserve to live in this world. Prepare to join." That is exactly what Ozai says to Aang in the last episode or two of Avatar: The Last Airbender. He says, "You're weak. Just like your people, just like the rest of your people, they did not to live in this world, in my world. Prepare to join them, prepare to die." Which is a great little shout out. I did not realize that a Harry Potter musical shouted out Avatar as well as obviously Harry Potter. That's literally the exact line too. The whole thing is lifted, which I did not realize. I thought that was really funny. So anybody who's watched both of these things,
I wonder how many times I've done that in all my writing. Where I've like just done something word for word for something else and like not even realized it.
Yeah, I mean, and so another thing with the plot, like book 3, there's a couple of almost fillerish episodes, but even then they're not really. The only one that's truly filler is which, if you want to talk about that, literally the greatest filler episode of TV ever. It's so ridiculous and it's so funny. That's one of my favorite things. Is like, and maybe we'll talk about during the part because it's an over exaggeration of the characters, but it's so funny, like where they're just so overtly making fun of themselves. I think that's great.
I just love the idea that the Fire Nation has a very successful propaganda theater.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. Like it's pretty cool. But other than that one, And even that has some actual plot moving along stuff, like the whole Aang Katara.
And Toph is the best in that too.
She, of course, like the fact that
played as
that's
like
one
a
of my
big
favorite
burly dude, and she's like, "Oh, she's the only one who's into it."
I love that setup where it's like, yeah, she's laughing the whole time, like, because she's the audience again. Like, oh yeah, actually no, guys, they actually are totally nailing you guys. This is actually pretty similar to how you are, which, although it's exaggerating, some of the facts are misconstrued in the play. It's actually true that yeah, that is kind of how the characters are. But Toph's like, yeah, I mean, no, guys, that's how it is. This is really funny, and the writer did his homework. And then they get to Toph, and like that's when Katara's like, ha! Doesn't feel so good. Yeah. Who looks stupid now? You do.
I also love the shout out to Cabbage Man in that episode.
Yeah, and then Toph's like, no, this is great. I love it. I'm happy with this. Like, Toph, I do love how they shout out the Cabbage Merchant.
Yeah, and a very well-informed, and an overly well-informed cabbage merchant.
Cabbage
merchant. Something like that.
Yeah, that was super funny. I think, but that book, I mean, it very much sticks to what's going on, and it moves forward at a good pace. They have some things that kind of go to the side, but even the things that kind of go off to the side still further the actual plot. Like, for example, the Boiling Rock, which is an amazing 2-part episode. I mean, it does serve things like they do get Hakoda from that. They do get Suki out of that. And it serves to actually, that's an extremely important arc because it's the episode that starts Azula's downfall, because it's where May and Ty Lee take someone side to side of Azula.
Yeah.
And we'll touch on that when we get to Azula, but like even that, like, it's not, you don't think like, oh, it's not going directly towards Aang's goal of defeating the Fire Lord, but it actually has a huge impact on the show, and they calculate that. Everything has an impact. Another great example, in my opinion, is the headband, which it's kind of a fillerish episode, but at the same time, it humanizes the Fire Nation in an amazing way, and it shows you that the kids are just regular kids.
Yes.
It shows you how
that was one of the episodes I had watched before back when it was new.
Oh, okay,
that was one of the episodes I remember catching when I was like really little.
And it really humanizes the characters. It shows how the propaganda. I mean, it shows how North Korea, or communist China, the cult of personality thing is very strong there. And it makes you feel bad for the average citizen.
It's all fake news.
Yeah, it really makes you feel bad for the average citizen there, instead of just vilifying the Fire Nation. And that is so powerful. Like, that's one of the things that the show does so well, is that not everybody is just it's not black and white. Not everybody's a piece of shit. Not everybody's perfect. And we have to work together to make the world a better place. And that episode alone is a big reason why I can believe everybody going to the Fire Nation and watching Zuko's coronation, instead of just being like, fuck the Fire Nation. That episode helps that. It's that they humanize the enemy. That's brilliant. And that's like what would otherwise be a filler episode. Most other shows would write that just as a filler episode, and Avatar makes it meaningful. And it's also funny.
There's certainly a calculated thing, and I'm going to say this as somebody who has written lots of different things, mostly RWBY fan fiction, of varying lengths. It's a lot easier to write something that's really long and drawn out that has a bunch of like just superfluous stuff in it than it is to write something as concise as like an episode of television that has a beginning, middle, and end and is all like cohesive and coherent and satisfying. And there's certainly a balancing act to doing both. And I'm kind of experimenting around with this with my current rendition of my overly long RWBY fan fiction, Ruby on Home, where I'm trying to make every like pair of chapters, because of cliffhangers, so it's gotta be a pair, be like their own story, but at the same time have this kind of ongoing plot with the character of Flask kind of tying in every single like villain of the week, and be like this kind of natural progression thing that'll eventually build up to the final arc villain. I'm not even halfway there yet. I'm like a third of the way through the first arc of Ruby on Home, but it's certainly something I'm tinkering around with that story, and something I probably would not have been able to do when I first started writing Ruby on damn near 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's. I mean, not just having watched. One of the things that I think Media and I talked about before we did this was, I haven't watched Avatar in I think about 6 or 7 years, and it was my favorite show before I stopped. I hadn't watched it for the longest, and this just reiterated everything to me. What's impressive is it's not just that Avatar makes Ruby look so much worse. It really is ruining Ruby for me even more. It's, you can say it's an unfair comparison,
even something that would be a much more fair comparison. Like
yes,
for me, it didn't have that impact this last time because I watched it like right after having watched Batman the Animated Series. Yeah. But when I started watching Batman the Animated Series, I got that feeling because the other shows that I had watched this year have been like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Ruby, Mob Psycho 100. I tried watching Blood Plus recently. That did not hold up as well as I thought it would. Neon Genesis Evangelion I tried watching earlier this year. Like, none of those shows, it had been so long of watching shows of that caliber that when I got into Batman the Animated Series again, when I rewatched it recently, I was just like, oh my god, I forgot what it's like to actually watch a good show.
Yeah, that's the thing for me. It's like,
in my book. Avatar is at least a 9. Batman the Animated Series is a 10 out of 10. Avatar, I'd probably say overall 10 out of 10. Stronger than the sum of its parts, really. Because I'd probably give all 3 books like a 9 out of 10 on their own, but together they form a 10. Because that's how math works.
I'd give book 1 a 9. I would give book 2 a 10. And I'd give book 3 like a 9.5, and we'll get to.
Yeah, I think on the Facebook page when I did like my brief reviews of them, I gave book 1 an 8, book 2 a 10, and book 3 a 9.
Yeah, so basically similar for me too. It's I think, and I realize now, like, this is why it's hard to start TV shows now. Is I think Avatar's a big reason for that. Is there's good TV shows, or at least shows that I've enjoyed since, and I've really gotten into binging TV since Avatar.
TV media has kind of been
turned into that, yeah.
Well, has kind of like gone downhill last.
It has in a
8,
lot of
9
ways.
years, mostly because of the advent of the internet and stuff like Netflix and Amazon Prime, Hulu Plus, stuff like that. Just making these shows a lot more accessible to everyone in a way that's not sitting down in front of a TV at a certain time, whatever, etc. Which made DVR kind of like just a placeholder thing.
My poster child for that is Arrow. Because it started for me, because it started a few years ago. So it started like at the tail end of when TV was still amazing. And it started off, I think, pretty well, and it got bad fast. Like, so that's why for me, Arrow is the poster child of the decline of TV. But I mean, there's still other shows that are really, really good.
And I haven't seen not just to bring up Dragon Ball again, but Dragon Ball has been around since the late 80s as a TV show. And so you kind of see that kind of evolution and the impact it had on television, which the impact it had on anime as a whole cannot be understated enough, or cannot be overstated enough.
I know you meant that.
Yeah, and like right now with Dragon Ball Super, more people watch it on Crunchyroll when it drops on that than they do when it actually airs on, I think it's TV Tokyo or something. Whatever channel it airs on in Japan. Like, more people, because the internet just has a much wider reach than television ever did or ever could, and only thing that really comes close is radio back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, back when the shadow was relevant and everybody loved him instead of him just being like a niche person for nerds like me. Because radio is one of those things, like, you don't just sit down and watch it. It's something you take with you. Walkman radios, car radios, radios at the rallies or sporting events, and yeah. Internet has a very similar reach. My phone, I have data. I can watch YouTube anywhere I want, whenever I want.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean, there's still there's good shows that I've really enjoyed since. I mean, Star Wars Clone Wars TV show is a big one. Star Wars Rebels actually is really good too. And other live action shows too.
I still need to watch that. I have not watched Deadwood. I need to watch Deadwood. I know it's one of those shows that's been recommended to me plenty of times over the years, and I've seen clips of it, and every clip I've seen is just like, oh my god, this show's so awesome. I haven't even seen it.
Western films are my favorite film genre. I've watched a lot of them. I even took a class.
Yeah, I love me some westerns.
And it's an amazing show. Timothy Oliphant, he's fantastic. And one of my other favorite live action shows is actually one that I'm watching right now that's really good is The Expanse. Actually, really enjoying that one. But even more than that is Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders is incredible. Cillian Murphy is a boss.
Cillian Murphy is a great actor.
Cillian Murphy's incredible. I still think he's really underrated.
Yeah,
he's really awesome. So that's another one, like, as far as live action shows that I'm enjoying. And but I think Avatar and a couple other things have made it really difficult for me to watch other. Like, I tried to watch what's the one I tried to watch? I tried to watch Fairy Tale. And I was just like, I watched like the first 3 episodes, and I'm like, what's the point of this?
There is no point.
How could they make so many episodes? Like, there's no, like, I kind of see the characters, but not really. Like, you don't know actually that much about Natsu in the beginning. I understand that the girl's kind of a bimbo, which really isn't the best characterization for a character.
Fairy Tail is a 200 plus episode long hand job with no climax.
And it's like, okay, I'm done. I tried to watch the first episode. This show's shit. Can't watch it. It's like
I shit on Bleach a lot, and even Bleach at least like had an interesting world right off the bat with like every element of the Bleach lore got introduced in the first 15 episodes, and then each arc after that is like, okay, we've introduced all these different types of things. Now let's take this one thing and explore that for an overly long arc, and now let's take this thing and explore that for an overly long arc. Like that was Bleach's structure, and that's kind of what worked about it. And that's what didn't work was the fact that Ichigo is just a terrible lead with no goals or motivations or anything. Like, he's worse than Oscar, and he is the lead, and he is the main character of that show. And that's why even when Bleach was good, it was still like not great, and that's what Naruto and One Piece and even Dragon Ball have over it, and why those shows are so much more well beloved than Bleach ever was.
I did have
and Fairy Tail like runs the same ground really as Bleach, but is kind of a less interesting because it's all just amorphous magic bullshit.
Yeah, and I think that's the problem I had with Attack on Titan is they spent too much time trying to be like, oh, MacGuffin this, MacGuffin that, MacGuffin this, MacGuffin that.
Attack on Titan suffers from a very different set of issues than Fairy Tail or Bleach.
Yes, no, it does. It does. It's actually suffers from some of the same things Ruby does. They think they're more clever than they are, kind of thing, and they try to be super clever when they're not. And then the result is they don't develop the characters. Like
so many Japanese writers are nowhere near as clever as they think they are. Like,
there's a lot of rule of cool, way too much rule of cool.
One of my big go-to examples is anything Japanese related that has anything to do with vampires. How they always have like a character named. It's not just Hellsing. Hellsing is one of the bigger offenders of this, but Hellsing is short. Hellsing was only 10 episodes long. It could get away with this. Mostly because it never really tried hiding it, even when the big reveal is just like, yeah, we already knew that, kind of deal. But there's always a character named Alucard, and there was always this moment where they write down Alucard, and then they like either hold it up against a mirror or start rearranging the letters very simply. They're like, oh, it's Dracula, and they play like the big dramatic music. And guys, that was old before Japan ever did it. That was old back when Hammer Films were doing it in the 60s.
Jeez.
Hammer Films was making fun of that by the 60s.
Yeah. I think the thing with Bleach is somebody explained this. Somebody told, well, I had a friend tell me this. Said that Bleach, that Ichigo can be summed up best by Little Karibo's parody within a parody about it. So within Little Karibo's Naruto abridged series, which was parodying the Team 4-Star Naruto abridged series, there's two characters. One of the Hokages is always argues with one of the other characters, and they made a joke about how the Hokage made a bridge series about Bleach, and basically the line is, "My name is Ichigo Kurosagi. This is my bunkai. It is all. Oh no, my name is Ichigo Kurosagi. I am retarded. This is my bunkai. It is also retarded." And somebody said, "Yeah, that's Bleach. There you go. That's literally Bleach." I'm
yeah,
like, okay,
I mean,
there you go.
It's not really doing Bleach justice, but you're not exactly wrong either.
I haven't seen it. I'm just saying what somebody told me. So, but anyway,
yeah. If Fairy Tail is 200 plus episodes of a hand job with no climax, then Bleach is 700 episodes of a man riding like one of those workout exercise bikes, thinking is going down the highway, and then the whole thing just falls apart at the end.
I thought it was going to be a guy riding an exercise bike thinking.
Oh, you cut out there.
I thought it was a guy riding an exercise bike. Oh, jeez, my internet is back.
Yeah. You're coming in clear right now, though.
Okay. It was. I thought it was a guy riding an exercise bike, thinking he was losing weight, but he's actually just eating a double cheeseburger the whole time, so nothing actually happened.
That works too.
But anyway, so you want to move on to the characters then, because this is my favorite part.
Yeah, and let's try to like. We've been going for an hour and a half now. Let's try not making this like our RWBY character podcast, which went like almost 5 hours.
We'll go through some faster. I say we spend the most time on Zuko, Iroh / and Azula, and then Toph. But so let's get through like Aang. Let's just talk about Sokka real quick then first. Let's get Sokka out of the way.
Comic relief.
Comic relief, which I'd say my biggest problem with Sokka is that he's comic relief that gets overshadowed immediately as soon as Toph gets there. He still says funny things, but he's not as funny as Toph once Toph arrives.
Yeah, and the show realizes that by making Sokka the butt of a lot of her jokes, the episode where she's gambling or whatever.
Yeah,
and he like no, it's actually Kitaro who does it, isn't it? That like shows the wanted poster, like slams on to Appa, and is like, "Do you know what this is?" And Toph's just like, I think it's paper.
So Sokka does it first, and he's like, "I think it's paper, but I don't know what it is." And then Guitar's like, "Geez, do you guys not understand this? I'm blind. I don't know." Me. But again, we're still managing to talk about Toph when we're talking about other characters.
Yeah, really? Sokka's the one who like throws the package down at her and hits her in the head.
Yep. Oh yeah.
A lot of physical humor.
Yeah, no, and they do it well. But I like Sokka. I like that they did do a good job in that. I like that Sokka's Master is one of my favorite episodes actually for the show.
I liked it a lot too.
I love Pion Dao. I think that guy's dope. I love his whole because he's a member of the White Lotus. I like how he's I love his trick question of like how Sokka has to prove his worth, and he proves his worth by being humble. I think that's really interesting. Their interactions are really good.
If you thought you were worthy, then why would you need me? Kind of deal.
Exactly. I think that's really interesting.
Which as a teacher, that like really hit home with me. That made him one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And he's another character that comes back. Sokka. One of the things that is like, Sokka. Like I remember the one time they even said like Sokka's the humor guy, and I was like, really, guys? I thought Toph was the humor guy. Like, I after a while, I don't see Sokka as being that hilarious anymore. I do like how at least they make.
Well,
him
they
the
did what
idea
they
guy.
did with Sokka. What Miles and Carrie are trying to do is Jean.
Yeah, but
in that he was the humor guy. Then he had that tragedy with his girlfriend turning into the moon. And then from there on, he like that definitely carried on with him. Like he'd still be funny every now and again, but you can definitely tell that he was forced to grow up at that point, and he did. And so then they kind of made him into the idea guy, the strategist. Which there are kind of elements of that in book 1, but I feel like that was I feel like him being the idea guy was more to substitute for the fact that he was no longer going to be like the main humor guy going forward after book 1 ended.
Yeah, no, which works though. I mean, I like Sokka,
which is actually which sounds like bad writing because they didn't set it up perfectly. But it's actually good writing because if you take something away from someone, you got to replace it. You can't just like this is my big problem with Volume 2 Weiss is that they took away all these flaws, and then the only thing left was daddy issues. And so Weiss and Volume 2 of Ruby was just daddy issues.
Yeah. No, I think they did a good job with that. Sokka's not my favorite character, but I do like him. Yeah, that's. Move on to,
not my favorite either. Let's move on to. He's not a
bad character.
Well, let's move on to Katara. Let's talk about his sister.
Okay. You can't. It's hard to talk about Aang without talking about Katara without talking about.
Yeah. They are. This is a trio of characters.
I had to touch on. We're gonna have to touch on the shipping. I think we'll talk about that with Aang though. But the funny thing is, I had to say this real quick, is that Katara, was my least favorite character when I watched the show the first times. Until I watched this time, I did not like Katara very much. This time, I actually really like Katara a lot, to be perfectly honest. She's actually really consistent, and I admire how well they wrote her. She actually gets more annoying at the end. She gets a little overly self-righteous and kind of loses control a little bit more, which I don't necessarily think is bad writing. I just find her a little bit too.
I actually found it like kind of creative writing because she's the most Paragon out of the group.
The most what?
Paragon, like she's the biggest goody out of the group, and so she was always kind of the moral compass of the gang as well.
True.
And they kind of like they kind of made her to where she was kind of getting a little sick of that in book 3. She was getting a little sick of being like everyone's mom all the time.
That's true. The one where the episode where her and Zuko
especially with Toph.
Yeah, the one where her and Zuko go to kill the guy that killed her mom was a good episode, in that it gave her more flaws. I think that helped. It made her a little bit more have more dimension. But one thing I really appreciated about Katara was, the fact I can't talk about Katara without talking about Katang as a ship. So I guess we just have to talk about that now then. Is that okay?
Yeah, is that actually what the ship's name was?
Yes, that was what the ship's name was. I was there when it happened. Their shipping names are not as creative as Ruby shipping names. I will say that.
That's actually what I've heard a lot of. Like that's something that the Ruby fandom actually has always gotten a lot of praise for, is how creative the shipping names get.
Oh, shipping names are amazing. Banana Split, Baked Alaska. That's like the best.
I love the fact that I just came up with Banana Split off the fly. I'm glad I contributed to that.
I like to call it, technically the more popular term is Sunny Bees, which is stupid.
Sunny Bees is a good name too, but I mean, I was just spitballing. I was just like, the Banana Split.
Banana Split's better. But I mean, like, Baked Alaska, like, that's one of the best fucking shipping names ever. Like, that's brilliant, okay? I don't care what anybody says. I also love that Ruby and Yang is called Enabler. That's just, that's funny. But anyway, I think It's funny is I didn't realize even when I was younger, like how overtly the shipping is in the show. Like from now on, this and Renora are the two things I'm going to point to when people say that shipping ruins shows. Fucking bullshit. The shipping in the show is really good, actually. They build up Aang and Katara's relationship like from the very beginning. Like he thinks she's gorgeous from the moment he fucking sees her. Like that's like they build that up and they have her being extremely supportive of him the whole time. Like I noticed this. Like every time Aang's in trouble, anytime something happens, she is the first person to go talk to him. She's the first person to calm him down. Sometimes she's the only person that can calm him down. She's the only person that can help him and reason with him sometimes. Like their relationship is so like healthy and supportive and incredible. Like it's based on friendship and actual love, attraction, all of that. It's amazing. Like they do a great job of hinting at it when they have the fortune teller. It's such a great episode. By the way, if you don't, fun fact, Jessie Flower voices Mang in that episode, and they bring her back for Toph. I don't know if you know that, but I love that.
I did not. I did not.
Yeah. So the weird girl with the pigtails in that episode, like I love that. I've kind of been stalking you, girl, right?
That is hilarious.
That's the same girl that voices Toph. Just had to point that out because I just find that hilarious and I love that. Because I love Mang. Mang's a great side character. But even in that episode, like they have Katara, like one of my Aang's a very powerful bender. You're gonna marry a very powerful bender. Like they're hinting at it the whole time, and they progress it naturally. They don't jump the gun anywhere. I love that. I do actually like that Katara is still unsure of what to do before the invasion starts because she's probably worried about losing Aang or whatever. She doesn't want to form attachment. I mean, the whole Aang being in love with Katara, like that's a major point of the whole show. Like, it's why Aang blocks himself from the Avatar state. It's how, that's what happens in Volume 2. Like, he brings that up, and I love how they bring that up later on in the show, where he's like, if I hadn't blocked when I haven't blocked my last chakra, I could have been the Avatar state right now, which is basically Aang saying, if I hadn't chosen you, I could have won already, and you're not even like reciprocating. Fuck you. Like, I love that tension that they actually bring that up. That's really awesome. There's drama between them, but not like stupid drama. They don't get them together and break them up again. Like, but their relationship comes from actual like support of each other. There's attraction. Also, Aang kissing Katara and then just fucking opening his glider and flying off. Badass Aang. That is badass. But they do all of that really well, and it's very important throughout the entire show. It's a major plot point to the point where it makes Aang make one of the biggest decisions of the show. That's a big deal, and I think it's an amazing example of how to do a relationship right in a show. Right? It always pisses me off that it was one of the things that pisses me off the most about anime. Is they tease romances, they tease relationships, and they never actually develop it. Whereas, which is so stupid. Like, I understand shows that just don't have any romance. I can understand that. I think romance almost always enhances a show when it's done right. I mean, I think Ruby's actually a good example of that, of like Renora. Black Sun is the only thing that makes Blake even standable at all. And I think that Katang is a really great ship. Even like stuff like Sokka and Suki.
I'm going to make an anime recommendation for you right now.
Okay.
Eureka 7.
What's it called?
Eureka 7. It's spelled like Eureka. Eureka 7. It's made by Studio Bone, same people who did like Fullmetal Alchemist. And the core relationship between the two main characters, Renton and Eureka, is very, very similar to Aang and Katara's relationship. I think you would like it. And the way it builds up and stuff, like, they tease it and they build it up and they actually, like, it starts at a place of, like, kind of, like, almost one-sided genuine admiration, but also, like, just how their respective personalities work off each other, and it naturally grows from there in a very believable way. I think it's a little more believable in Avatar. Eureka 7 got a little more sappy. with
Okay,
it.
gotcha.
It got a little more like lovey-dovey like towards the end, where like halfway through they're already like holding hands and stuff, and then it's just it still like progresses from there, and there's still like kind of this back and forth stuff because of. And I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I'm just going to say that there's a lot of stuff riding on Eureka's success throughout the series that gets in the way of having this healthy relationship with Renton. But Renton's the audience surrogate character. He's kind of the real main character, even though Eureka is like the most important character. But yeah, it's a really good show. It's one of my personal favorite animes out there.
Okay, gotcha. No, I'll have to take it out then. But I just think it was really well done, and I have no idea how anybody can ship Zutara with what they did with Katay. Like, it's Rose Garden makes more sense than Zutara, and you know how much I despise Rose Garden, specifically because Katang is set up so well, and it's
I can see why Zutara is a thing.
But
just because there's that really like it's not a trope in anime or in like cartoons or anything. It's a trope in teenage romances. It's your trope in your Twilight type stuff of the bad boy and the girl who fixes him. And that's kind of where Zutara is at overall.
No, I understand why, but it's like with how much they set up the relationship, like how can you think that's what's going to happen? There's no way in hell the writers would ever make it happen in a billion years. This show is so not necessarily centered around Aang and Katara's relationship. It's a big fucking part of it. It's very important to the show, and it's very well done.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like a huge I didn't really actually care much about that relationship. The one I actually cared about at the time when I was watching it was Taka. I shipped Sokka and Toph, like those guys. I thought they were great together. But,
I did too. I kind of shipped Toph with everyone.
As soon as once she
I love like one thing I love about Korra is that they never like definitively say who either of her baby daddies are. So it's just like so rewatching this again and seeing like her interact with Sokka, I'm just like, I want to believe.
I want to believe. No, they did say who one of them was. They didn't say the second.
Who was one of them?
They said who one of them was. They didn't say who one of the other one, which it was.
I don't remember it, so I'm gonna guess it wasn't someone important.
No, it was not somebody important. They didn't matter at all. But because nobody matters to Toph. Nobody's good enough for. But anyway,
straight.
Damn straight, man. Damn straight. So I just think it's something that was done really well on the show, and like that's a good example of how to do shipping right. Katara is a character that's a big part of her. That was like her support for Aang. That's done really well, and I appreciate that about her character. And now more than ever, I think that's really cool. Also, this show in general. If you want to learn how to do badass females without looking like a stupid feminist apologist SJW, just watch Avatar. Like, the females are badass because they're like.
Watch any show from the early 2000s.
Yeah, you don't need to explain.
Seriously, there's a reason why the right wingers call that whole movement the regressive left is because they actively ignore things that came before in order to suit their narrative. Like the big one right now is Star Trek. With Star Trek Discovery, there was an actual headline that had to get recanted from a major news outlet that got cited by other major news outlets talking about Star Trek Discovery when it was coming out. So a lot of websites are guilty of saying this. First black lead in Star Trek. Motherfucker, you ain't the first woman lead. You ain't the first black lead. You're barely even the first black woman lead. Barely. Because there's been plenty of excellent black women characters from the original Star Trek.
Yeah.
Like, one of the most important characters is Aurora. And so it's kind of this, like, revisionist history that goes on with a lot of stuff like this, and I see it every time a new Disney movie comes out. It happened just in the short period of time between Zootopia and Moana. I love both of those movies, but the way that this media culture reacted to Moana really, really like it kind of red pilled me. Not as much as some other things, but it kind of red pilled me because like Zootopia just happened. Like, come on, guys. Moana's not even the first strong female Disney character that year, let alone this decade, let alone ever.
Also, don't forget Joy from Inside Out.
Yeah, Joy from Inside Out was just a year before that. Elsa and Anna, Brave was in 2014.
Well, okay, my one defense is that Elsa and Anna actually kind of suck, and they actually
I like them. I like the way it did the dual protagonists with them. But I mean, even like before that, in the '90s, you had Mulan, you had Belle, you had great. Jasmine. Which, granted, Jasmine wasn't a lead. Belle and Mulan were. Pocahontas, which that one was kind of boring. Ariel, who was maybe a little problematic, but you know, my original wife. And then like, yeah. My original cartoon crush was Ariel. Like I seriously cite like my penchant for liking redheads with blue eyes comes from Little Mermaid, straight up.
See, I don't have that, but Ariel was my favorite. Also,
my favorite Disney princess from a character standpoint has always been Cinderella, and that was in the 50s. That was in the 50s that movie came out.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, it's
she works her ass off to earn that happy ending.
I think
American Dream right there.
My biggest reason why I praised Moana versus was comparing it to the last princess movie, which was Frozen, and the reason why I praised Moana is because with Frozen, it felt like they were hitting us over the head with girl power.
Yeah, a little bit.
They did it better because it was just there. And I think it's just she didn't. They had to say, "I don't need no man." Like she just didn't have a man. Like that's it. They didn't have to draw attention to anything. She's just awesome.
Yeah, I mean, she kind of had a bunch of other stuff on her shoulders, which I think that's a good segue into Aang. Talking about Aang, yeah. AKA. This is why you don't tell 12-year... I said this last time. This is why you don't tell 12-year-olds that the world relies on them. They do not handle that kind of pressure.
Which is great, though. I mean, Aang's not my favorite character of all time, but he is done well. He is a good protagonist. Like, again, they give you his quirks.
He's a good lead. He's well fleshed out. You really buy his motivation for running, even though it's certainly a character flaw that he ran at all, and... That there's that kind of like cowardice with him,
but hey,
he has a lot of fear inside of him that a lot of villains exploit. But you buy it again. You buy it. It feels real because he's like 12.
Yeah. It's believable. He's
like
relatable,
this is something Harry Potter didn't get right until like the 5th book.
Yeah,
which is when everybody stopped liking Harry Potter as a character because he was too whiny. Like, no, that's how someone would really react in that situation.
That's the thing that always pissed me off. Is Book 5 is the best book by books 5. And
it's 6, the only one I've actually like sat down and read all the way through.
It's Book 5 is amazing. It's
by myself. Yeah.
But him being like that, like that's how 15-year-olds fucking act, man. Like, what do you expect? That's how we act.
Like, motherfucker, you watch someone die in front of him.
Yeah,
and then got tortured.
And by the way, what's her face? What's the bitch teacher that?
Umbridge.
Yeah, she's like the worst person ever. Of course you're gonna be like all whiny and moody and shit. Plus, Cho Chang is an annoying bitch. She's so fucking annoying.
Oh god, I forgot she even existed.
Yeah, that's why Ginny's so dope.
Oh yeah, I love me. I love me some Ginny Weasley.
That's literally a thing they point out in Harry Potter's like, that's one of the things that Harry liked about Ginny. She was really weepy. She never cried that much. What if that's a call out to Cho Chang? Yeah, I think it is. You know. So, anyway,
Luna Lovegood was always my favorite character. female character in Harry Potter.
I love Luna. By the way, so the Harry Potter musicals, they did a third one, and they got Ivana Lynch in it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So that's how big those musicals got. I'll put it that way. And Tom Felton actually addressed the musicals like one time in an interview too. Like that's how big they got. So, but no, Aang is. I don't think there's a ton to say about him because he's just so consistent and he's got his flaws, but he works around them. My one thing that I don't like is I don't think it's necessarily bad, but it's something that bothered me personally, is I don't like that he didn't kill Ozai. I didn't really like that. I understand why that's consistent with his character, I guess. But to me, it's too much of a bitch move. And I feel like the fact that like all the avatars are telling me how to do it.
I felt like that was kind of to pay off the fact that they were taking 5 episodes with that whole finale.
Yeah,
because if he would have just, I feel like if he would have just, we'll never know because that version of Avatar: The Last Airbender does not exist in this reality. But if he would have just killed him outright, then it kind of would have put that entire existential crisis thing. It would have made it a little pointless.
Yeah,
it would have made it a little pointless.
I understand that. For me, my logic is that it would have been him having to get over that in order to do what's actually best for everybody. But I understand your point also.
Which is why, like, I did something similar with Ruby a couple times in Ruby on. It's almost like I'm actually a hack writer. But no, I made her kill someone, like, out of necessity fairly early on. Like, less than halfway through Ruby on Veil. And then that kind of, like, haunted her throughout pretty much the rest of her life. And still kind of, like, it's still something that she, like, regrets in her past. But then when it came to, like, Cinder, where she had gotten stronger, she was a little more determined to be like, I don't want more blood on my hands. And that's ultimately why she spared Cinder. And when it got to Salem, she wanted to spare the same courtesy to Salem, but there's just no human possible way to defeat Salem without just absolutely destroying every fiber of her body.
And that was my other complaint, was that that's the one kind of Deus Ex Machina thing the show really was
the Lion Turtles.
Yeah, that was a little bit stupid. That was my biggest complaint, and that's why I don't like it. If he somehow figured it out, like I would have preferred it to him figure it out from like Roku, or actually had to journey into the spirit world and find something that is like that explains that to him. I would have been more okay with that, but like it's like after he goes to the existential crisis and he's like, well, I guess I'm gonna have to kill him. Lion Turtle's like, no, you don't. That's where I'm like, okay, this is kind of stupid. So I didn't really dig that. But otherwise, Aang's a good character. It's not my favorite, but I like him, and I like how their relationship paid off. I like how the kiss is the last thing from the show. I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's the last scene.
Yeah.
I think that's badass. That's how you do it, man. That's how you do it. So let's talk. I want to talk about. Well, we talked about Ozai a decent amount, right? Like just more.
I wanted to say this though. Ozai's kind of the weak link plot wise as far as characters go, in that they do such a brilliant job humanizing even a smug fucking cunt like Azula, and Ozai doesn't really get the same treatment.
Yeah. I think they
play some lip service with like what Iroh says about him, and like the baby pictures when they visit the like vacation home.
The baby picture.
And the way that Zuko's changing perception of his father, but it never really gets to that same like level of they never really humanize him the same way that they humanized Azula and the Fire Nation as a whole in Book 3 and all the other.
To the point where to the point where I really kind of consider Azula to be the big bad throughout the show, to be perfectly honest. It's like Azula / Ozai as like co-big bads, kind of.
Yeah. Azula is certainly Zuko's arch nemesis, at least in the latter half.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. It's not the strongest thing, and that combined with the Deus Ex Machina bullshit made the ending a little bit little bit weak for me, to be honest. That's one of the biggest, only complaints I kind of have about the show is that if they had done a little bit more with Ozai and not had that Deus Ex Machina Lionel shit with Aang, I think the ending could have been more impactful. And I think another thing is it's sort of like what people complain about. It's not actually bad. It's still a great. Those last 5 episodes are still fucking amazing, and it's still a great and satisfying ending and everything. But and I think
which
it's
is
partly,
something so few shows get.
yeah, I think it's something that I think it's part of the reason why some don't like book 7 of Harry Potter. I do, but books 5 and 6 are so fucking good that you can't expect 7 to have been as good. It would have been like the biggest freak of nature thing ever. It's kind of not possible, and that's sort of the same thing with the end of Avatars, with book 2 being so fucking amazing. I don't think you can make the last as good as that one. I just don't think it's possible. So it's okay. It's still great. Like, but I don't think it would have been possible. So I guess then we got to talk about Azula next.
Yeah, I think I summed her up really nicely when I called her a smug cunt.
She is.
She's
She is scary as fuck, man. Like, I love Azula. Like, her reveal is like she looks angry from the beginning, man. Like, you know what she's like from the very fucking beginning. It's great, and it's cool that she's like a nemesis. Even when Zuko's still kind of a bad guy, she's a nemesis for both as Zuko and Team Avatar, whatever you want to call them. And she is just, I love that you only really get sympathy for her at the end. I kind of think that's interesting because I think it kind of throws you for a loop because you see her as this evil sack of shit the whole time, and she's great at being that. She is conniving, manipulative. She's smart. She's powerful. It's so like I said, it's so believable the way she takes over the Dai Li because she just has that much presence and power and leadership skill. Like, she is like everything that like an evil dictator, like king, would be. Like, she is royal, she is a god on earth, and she knows it, but she actually is competent as a leader and a fighter. And she is almost as good as she thinks she is. I think that's the thing. And that's really incredible. And that makes her such a formidable villain. She's relentless and ruthless, and I love that she is so power hungry that it even scares her dad. Like that, I love that they put that in there. That she expected that she was going to conquer with him, but he's like, nah, I can stay here because even I'm kind of freaked out by you. Like that's so smart that they put that.
You get to be the new Fire Lord. I'll be like the Phoenix King or something.
Yeah. That's the one thing he actually feared at that point. That's great. Like,
well, by that point, she was like completely unhinged because of her 2 cronies who were like this really loyal to her and were at one half like kind of too scared to betray her, and the other half like genuinely admired her. And one of them I shipped
when she said like when they said like, oh yeah, they should be like crawling, like they should be like worshiping you, and Ty Lee said they should. It's like, whoa, okay. But that's good that they put that in there, that they gave her.
And I totally ship Azula with Ty Lee, by the way.
I know.
Thank you, internet, by the way, when I googled that.
Yeah. Rule 34, yo.
Oh, I didn't rule 34. I just Google image searched. Oh. I didn't look up anything too lewd. But yeah, just these 2 people that she thought could never betray her picked someone over her, and it's just like, I feel like that's gonna happen if Emerald ever betrays Cinder, and I think Rooster Teeth is low enough to actually have that be a major plot point because it was done in Avatar. But yeah, I have a feeling that they will at one point kind of rip off Avatar with that.
I mean,
kind of
even them,
line.
even them cheaply ripping Avatar would be an improvement to the show, so I'm okay with that. I honestly wouldn't complain because it'd still be an improvement. I also like another thing that Avatar gets right is there is a reason for it. They didn't just arbitrarily betray her. She was gonna kill Zuko. May has a relationship with Zuko. She defends Zuko.
Not just that, but Mai's dad was also there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, it's not her dad. It's her
uncle. That's right.
Yeah. Her dad's the guy who was ruling Omashu.
Yeah.
And then Ty Lee defends May because Azula was going to attack May. Like the fact that's a great point. It's like, she's willing to attack her own family and attack her friends. So Ty Lee's logic would make sense of if she's going to attack May, then she'd attack me. So I'm going to take May's side then. So all of that is there's reasons why. It's not like, oh, her friends just betrayed. No, there's a reason. It's her own fault. That's the point. That's what makes it so great is that it's Azula's own fault it's her own fault that her downfall happened. And then just her psychosis and her downfall is one of the most amazing.
Yeah, it fractures her pride. And when that happens, everything else just turns to shit for her.
And just watching her descend into madness is I am impressed that a kid's show did it that way and had her go that crazy. Like, it is well done. Like, again, shout outs to Grey Delisle for knocking the voice acting part out of the park. But also shout outs to everybody else for she just goes nuts. So like it's hard to explain. Like, you have to watch the show to just really get a vibe for just how crazy Azula goes. And like you said, like her hallucination with her mom, like the fact that that's the moment where we get sympathy for her is brilliant. And it's so, it does things to you. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. This is supposed to be the biggest piece of shit in the show, honestly. And I'm like, I'm feeling bad for her. Holy shit. Like, this is crazy. Like, it's something that's really powerful. And seeing her like stuck in the chains and still like breathing fire, like, it's crazy. I love it. It's so well done. And I guess we can't talk about that much further because it's really just something you got to watch the whole show and get to that point and see that. And it's powerful. It's a really powerful thing to see.
So, moving on to who's next?
Zuko. We got to say Toph for last.
Zuko
is okay. I have to go on another rant real quick. I know. Okay. Zuko is Blake done right. That's what he is, because you look at the scene. Okay, this is my example. You look at the scene where that Blake has with her dad, with Gira. That is almost the exact same scene as Zuko meeting up with Iroh again when he's like in White Lotus mode. It's the same thing. Like the whole falling down the wrong path and actually.
I was scared that you had lost your way.
It's the exact same thing, but notice the difference. Stupid fucking retarded Miles and Carrie. We actually saw everything that happened to Zuko.
Yeah, didn't I see that in the podcast for those? Like, I would have loved to see that. I would have loved to see her just going off on her parents and calling them cowards and stuff.
Yeah, that's seeing Zuko do that means something. Seeing Zuko actually, his. Okay,
seeing the whole like the symbolism with the two dragons always around Zuko.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Azula. One of them is Azula, and one of them is Iroh. Iroh trying to lead him down the righteous path and becoming independent and individualism, and then Azula's like, no, you got to be all for the family and honor for the Fire Nation, pride of the Fire Nation, this, honor that, and seeing that internal conflict get played out over the course of many episodes, and seeing like the dread and regret, no matter which side Zuko is fighting on at the moment, there's always that point where he's like regretting, where like he regrets saving Aang as the Blue Spirit, he regrets letting Aang go at the end of book 1. He regrets betraying Katara and Iroh at the end of book 2. And he tries to like reason that and rationalize that with Iroh, and Iroh just does not even talk to him for a long time in book 3. It's not until he's in White Lotus mode and Omashu and Zuko's there with the Avatar gang and actually apologizing and being like, I'm making things right, that Iroh finally talks to him. And that the tears in that scene,
so much more genuine than Blake and Garrus scene. Oh, it's like you got to show all of that. Like, we can't sympathize with Blake when she's just annoying. Whereas Zuko, they show, like, yeah, he does a lot of dumb, wrong, and mean, and maybe even evil things, but you can understand why he does all of those things. They show you the conflict. They, I think it's also really impressive that there's that part, he goes through that whole the fever thing, and then he comes out of it, and it looks like he's going to do the right thing, and then he relapses. And then he finally really does the right thing. It's not until, I love this, and I didn't really actually even appreciate this before, and I already said before that I watched this time, that Zuko is one of the greatest characters ever. Any fictional character, I honestly believe Zuko is one of the greatest of all time. I've never seen like an anti-hero, whatever you want to call him, like somebody that becomes like a good guy.
Face turn. Face turn.
A face turn. Nobody. A face turn character is an ace in the hole for any show, right? If you can do a face turn character, you got it. And no, I don't think I've ever seen a face turn character done as well as Zuko. And it's one of the most difficult characters to even do. And it's done this brilliantly. That's amazing.
The only two that even come close for me are Gaara in Naruto and Piccolo in Dragon Ball / Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah.
But with both of those characters, it kind of got to a point where you kind of forgot they were ever villains. Like once that arc like really gets underway, it's like once Piccolo sacrifices himself for Gohan, and once Gaara saves Lee from Kimimaru, at those points in their respective character arcs, they're full-fledged heroes. They never backslide after that.
Yeah. And
which is why they only come close. And it's because I love them both as villains and as hero. I love Piccolo as a villain. I love him as a hero. I love Gaara as a villain. I love Gaara as a hero. Gaara's probably my favorite character in Naruto. This is kind of why I really nerded out when Death Battle did Gaara versus Toph.
Oh, I don't know Gaara. But the thing is, I think that's impressive is because I think Zuko is a really important character for the show, because Aang's journey, you kind of know what's going to happen. And that's fine. It's not a bad thing. Zuko, you actually don't know what's going to happen the whole time. You actually don't know. And that is really important to the show. So I think...
there's a lot of ambiguity with his emotions. And like a lot of like genuine internal conflict where you could easily see him going both ways. And it would be completely within character either way he picks.
That's what's great.
And that's the difficult thing, is that a lot of other things do this, but one way, like, if it's one way, then that's in character, and the other way would be out of character. Like most recently with Yang going after Raven is kind of out of character.
Kind of out of character, yeah. But I think the thing that was amazing, the fact that he could have chosen either, and the fact that like you can understand why he like backslides both ways is amazing, that they do that without it just being annoying. But I think one of the coolest things that I didn't realize all the first times I watched until just this time, one of the coolest things was that it wasn't until he was sitting at his father's right hand, having literally everything he ever thought he wanted, and he wasn't happy. He said he wasn't.
Because it's not what he wanted. It's not who he was inside.
It's not who he was inside anymore. That was like, that's what it took.
And that's what Iroh was always worried was always going to happen with him eventually. Like, kid,
and
Zuko, you don't know what you want. You think you do. But what you want is not something someone can tell you. You have to find out for yourself. And that's where Iroh comes in as his kind of guiding force, his big like guardian mentor, guardian angel mentor. Guardian angel T. Yeah.
I think that's the brilliant thing is that, and after that moment, he's still in character the rest of the show, but you notice that after that, he doesn't waver anymore. That is, he's done wavering after that point. He is fully, and he has full conviction.
He is done wavering, but it doesn't stop them from like still having that like ambiguity and stuff. I mean, there's a reason why he basically goes on an adventure with everybody except Toph, which they kind of make a funny gag about that. Like she wraps her arms around him, like, "Hey, everybody else has had a life-changing journey with Zuko recently.
Where's mine?" That was funny. That was the moment I started Toph. Actually, no.
Yeah, that's another one where I want to believe.
I shipped them after the Ember Island Players thing, where she explains like her interaction with Iroh and everything. Thought that was really cool. But
yeah, and I'll get to that when we get to Toph.
Yeah, we'll yeah, Toph is the best. But Toph is my favorite, but as technical characters go, Zuko is the best character in the show, I think. If you had to go technically, it's amazing how well they did his character arc. It's because you start at the beginning and you never expect Zuko to go where he goes. And that's amazing. Like where he goes is so compelling.
No, and because of the way like cartoons run and stuff, you expect him to be kind of less almost like Team Rocket, like "I'll get you next time, Avatar."
Yeah, exactly.
I
mean, even books. I haven't even seen books that do a character like him that well. To be honest, it's very hard to do a face turn character well, and they do him and turn him into one of the best characters ever. It's crazy. I love that. Like his ambiguity of choosing is like, I mean, Luke Skywalker has not done that well, and they're supposed to have like his kind of ambiguity of what he's going to choose. They don't do that as well as Zuko has done.
With Star Wars, there was a much more Faustian approach to it, with like, "Come to me, join me," where we know that Luke is a good guy, and you're just like, it's kind of like, "Luke, no, don't. You're not. You're a good guy. You don't do this." And then it's all through Mark Hamill's performance and the lighting, cinematography, editing. Yeah, John Williams' masterful score that you almost be like, "Oh my god, he's gonna actually like kill Darth Vader and go to the dark side."
Yeah, I mean it is. Well, I mean, obviously we're gonna talk about all this because we're gonna do our Star Wars podcast.
Oh yeah.
But I'm very excited for that too. But yeah, I'm actually more excited for the non-Ruby podcasts that are coming out. I've got to be honest. This and the Star Wars stuff and the Batman thing. And the Batman one will come to like January because all the Star Wars stuff to do. Yeah. But I think it's part of it is like, you know, you said George Lucas has a very black and white view of the world, whereas like you have one of the things that I give Dave Filoni credit for in the Star Wars both the Star Wars TV shows, the Clone Wars TV show and Rebels. Is that I think he, you know, inspired by, you know, his work on Avatar, is he does a much better job of doing gray area stuff. With characters like even Anakin is better done in that TV show than he's ever done in the movies. And
can we just say that like everything other than Ruby that we have talked about today has had Mark Hamill as a major driving force in it?
That's true. And Mark Hamill even plays bad guys in Star Wars.
Yeah.
That's how awesome Mark Hamill's voice acting is. But yeah, no, Mark Hamill's amazing. That's true. I love that he's so important in Star Wars and in Avatar. Oh, so great.
And Batman.
And Batman, that's right. And fucking Batman, because he's Joker.
Nice of you to say. But you of all people should know, there's plenty wrong with me. That's actually from Arkham City, which I think is better than any performance he gave in the TV show, and that's saying something.
I almost want to play Arkham City just for that. But yeah, all right. So should we move on to Toph then? Because Toph is literally the
Yes, and so what I was gonna say with her and Zuko is that it was such a genius stroke of writing to have Toph be the one that kind of facilitates the group accepting Zuko.
Oh, I know. Oh my god, that was so good. That was
Because
so
she
good,
came
like
into the group later. She wasn't there for the North Pole. She wasn't there to see, like, the first time Zuko, to see, like, all this constant Zuko nearly being good, but then still being bad. She wasn't there for any of that. Her first interaction with any Fire Nation person at all was with Iroh, before she ever had a chance to meet Zuko or anyone else from the Fire Nation. She had met Iroh and had tea with him, and he helped her. And so it really makes sense that she was the one who is more open to him joining and being like, hey, yeah, he's done some bad things, sure, but dude, his uncle's cool, and if he wants to do and if he's like siding with his uncle on this matter, yeah, we can trust him.
Yeah, and also, she's, again, I feel like she's kind of the audience insert character a little bit, because she's a lot of times she's actually the one that ends up being the most practical and just saying like, yo guys, this is kind of what we need to do. So yeah, can we just do the right thing instead of what you guys like emotionally want to do? So I think that's really cool.
Well, yeah. She can be pretty brash.
Yeah.
But she's smart. Like, she's kind of level-headed, like, in a way that Sokka kind of isn't. Like, Sokka's really good with coming up with ideas and stuff, but he is still very much driven by his emotions, whereas Toph was always always taught to bury her true emotions. I mean, she became like a freaking legend in the underground earthbending wrestling WWE macho. I can't believe one of those characters was not played by Macho Man Randy Savage circuit, without her parents ever noticing that she could do more than lift a pebble.
Yeah. Which she actually calls the boulder the pebble, funnily enough.
Yep.
Also, I love
the boulder! I can't believe he was not voiced by Randy Savage.
I do love
I refuse to believe that.
The boulder and the hippo. We fight for our country. And then Toph is like, sweet.
Nice.
Sweet. Yeah, no, okay, another thing is, to shit on Oscar some more, because I don't do that enough. Episode 6, The Blind Bandit. This is a master class in how you introduce a new main character, and instead of making them a third or fourth or fifth or sixth wheel, make them an absolute powerhouse of a fan favorite character. And I'm not the only. I mean, yeah, both of us. Toph is our favorite character. So many, and we're not the only ones. Like, I don't know anybody who doesn't like Toph or love Toph. It's so hard not to adore Toph. And she's not OP. She's not flawless. She has flaws. Like, and she's still low. This is how you do it. This is how you do introducing a character and making them interesting. She has a vulnerable side. She's very powerful, but even in the first episode, she's not OP because she gets fucking wrecked by Aang immediately. Even if she is the greatest earthbender of all time, because, spoiler alert, she invents metal bending, also fucking bad. But she's not completely OP because she gets wrecked by Aang. She's automatically not OP because she's blind. She can't see. She uses that to her advantage in certain ways, but there are shortcomings to being blind that she will never get around. So that's already, it's smart in itself. You know, she has that vulnerable side of, you know, what her parents did to her. You know, she kind of lashes out at times because of that. She can be impulsive. She's not always mature. And that manifests itself throughout the entire show. But that's all, they make that all relatable and understandable. And yet she's like the most badass and most fun bender to watch in the show. She's sarcastic. She's fucking hilarious. I mean, she's the most lovable character ever. It's ridiculous how great Toph is. And they get that right from the very beginning, from her first introduction. Like, her first thing is like being a sarcastic smartass. Oh yeah, the pebble. I'm gonna kick you. Do people really want to see two little girls fighting down here? Like, it's fucking awesome. Like, they get it right
God damn it,
from the
she's just simply
fucking
best.
get go. She's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get her cocky and sarcastic side, her badass bending, but you also get her losing to Aang very easily, and her soft sided when she gets so vulnerable in front of her parents. When she says, "I'm 12 years old and I've never had a real friend," like, that's gut wrenching right there. Like, who is that not going to touch when somebody says something like that? You know, it's meaningful, and I think that you get all that in that one episode before you get all the rest of it, and then the very next episode with her being very immature and angry and just, fucking lashing out at Katara, which does come back, which is very cool. I like how they have the Katara and Toph clashing specifically a lot. But you have that happening. The second episode she's in there, you get a lot of flaws with the character too. So she's well-rounded basically in one episode and super well-rounded in two episodes, especially given her interaction with Iroh in the second episode she's in. Like, she's more fleshed out than most Ruby characters are in two episodes. Actually, in one episode, but really in two episodes. It's crazy.
So I pulled up on Discord on my phone things that I've said about Toph while I was watching this. First mention was September 5th. I kind of ship Katara with Zuko just a little bit. I also remember shipping Toph with Zuko. I don't remember why. This was before I got to her introduction. This is like pretty early on.
I shipped Toph with Zuko as soon as they started interacting.
Yeah. September 12th. Daily reminder that Toph is just the fucking best.
Yeah.
Exclamation point. Toph for president. Keyboard Kitten said Toph is Melon Lord.
Toph is Melon Lord. Dude, Toph as Melon Lord was amazing. I am not Toph. I am Melon Lord.
September 13. Toph knows how to roll because, daily reminder, she's the freaking best.
She invents metal bending. How fucking cool is that? And also, it's done really well because they have the explaining, like, the illusion between the elements and how metal is just earth that's refined. But the fact that she is the first character in history of their universe to invent metal bending, like, they reserved that for her character. You know that's what they did. They came in with that character. She's gonna invent metal bending. Like, that's fucking so cool. And again, yet she's not technically OP because they keep reminding that she's blind. She loses to airbending, like, pretty much automatically. And that's good. Like, they keep that there without making her some stupid OP character.
Zuko burns her feet by accident, and she stumbles around blindly.
Yeah.
Like, even more blindly.
And that's how you do it. Like, she's the most badass character in the show, yet she's vulnerable and she has flaws. Like personality-wise and even fighting-wise.
So, September 14th, these last two episodes are going to be insane. Toph is captured, Aang is going to the East Air Temple, Sokka is going to see his dad, Azula is disguised as a Kyoshi, and Zuko is having one of the most literal man vs. self dilemmas, the side of Superman 3. That was from the Book 2 finale.
Yeah. Because that story arc's the best.
And for the Superman 3 reference, there's a part in Superman 3 where Superman literally fights Clark Kent over control over his body. And then that same day, I do remember how the Toph thing ended up. It's one of the best moments in the entire show. I am the greatest earthbender ever. Baby, you ain't kidding. Of course you're the greatest earthbender ever. You're simply the best.
Yeah, and it's like, when she does that, I am the greatest earthbender in the world. Don't you two dunderheads ever forget it. It's like, and I said the same thing. I was like, damn right, Toph. You fucking tell him.
The show needs more Toph and Iroh camaraderie.
Yeah.
There's not a single episode where Toph doesn't do something awesome.
Also true. Yep.
Katara. Go on.
Have I mentioned that it's really that's so cool that you invented metal bending? You could stand to mention it more. Also, her nicknames like Snoozles, Lady Fancy Face. What does she call Twinkle Toes?
Yeah, Twinkle Toes.
All the nicknames are fucking great.
Yeah. So this is from the same day. Katara and Aang trying to be like Sokka while he's learning how to use a sword. It would be a medial B plot, but then I do like the kind of screenplay stuff. Toph, I miss Sokka. Me, no. Katara's like, if you miss him so much, no. Why don't you marry him? Then me, why must you tease me like this? Why must you tease my shipping tendencies?
They actually have her blush about missing Sokka.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah. That's why I wrote that.
They actually tease it, which I'm like, I kind of love them for, and I kind of hate because I wanted Taka instead of Toph and Sokka and Suki. Not that it's Suki. It's just I wish they had that.
Yeah. The next day, September 15th, everyone else is getting in this episode getting butthurt over their portrayals, and Toph is just laughing her ass off because she's the freaking best. And that was the last daily reminder because I finished up the series that day. But yeah. Every day that I watched Avatar, I put a daily reminder about Toph that she's just simply the fucking best.
Yeah, my first intro to her desert episode where like they're just sitting in the thing, it's just like, there it is! That's what it'll sound like when one of you spots it. That was so fucking funny. and like the whole like her trying to interact with Appa was so funny. Like, sup. Like she's just so awkward. They're like, yeah, I've held books before, and they don't exactly do it for me. Another great scene was where Suki saves her and she from drowning, and she's like, "Oh, Sokka, you saved me."
Yeah.
Actually, it's me. Oh, well, you can go ahead and let me
drown.
Shift
confirmed. Now. Suki X Top.
Yeah. I was just saying something. Yeah, you can go ahead and let me drown now. Like, that's so good. Or was the other thing like, it's so dark in here. I can't see a thing. Oh no, what a nightmare. Oh, sorry. And then the page is like, well, you know what is this? I don't know. I think it's a piece of paper. They do. You know what this is? Seriously, do none of you understand? I'm blind. Or have the blind girl fly the spaceship, the airship. Actually, I was referring to Suki. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't it?
Just the fact that she makes blind jokes about herself.
All the time, yeah. Or what's the other one's like, now that I actually work now, this joke made me laugh a lot more. When they're like picking the mini vacations, and Toph's like, hey, when do I get to pick? And Sock's like, you gotta work here a little longer before you qualify for vacation time. And she gets like, she gets all huffy about that. Or like, that's all super funny. I'm trying to think of like some of the other. Oh yeah, another one where Toph like and the Serpent's Pass, where she saves Sokka, and she's like, Sokka's like, Suki, you need to be more careful, and Toph's like, hey Toph, thanks for saving my life. Hey, no problem, Sokka. All like her little sarcastic interactions with herself and with other people are just. Oh, and what's another one that was really funny where she interacts with Zula, like, I'll be able to tell if you're lying. I am a 500-foot tall purple dragon that can. All right, I'll admit it. You're good. Like, I don't know. It's I have like I should have just done a list of all the amazing.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I wish I would have thought of that. I totally would have.
I didn't. But Toph really is just the best the whole time. Uncle's also funny too. Was the one where this tea is nothing more than hot leaf juice, and Zuko's like, "That's what all tea is." How can someone from my own family say so horrible?
Yeah.
What was the other thing? Sick of tea? That's like being sick of breathing.
Iroh loves his tea.
Iroh's also amazing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, and also Toph busting out being rich is awesome. Like how she just fucking busts that off on everybody and uses it like a boss. Oh, and also the other one was when Sokka's like, I worked all day on my Appa drawing. What are those things coming out of his head? Those through his horns. It looks just like him to me.
Yeah.
Why do you feel the need to do that?
Yeah, so he's just like, why?
Why? Let's break some rules! And she just blows up the side of the house too, like just being a badass all the time. Yeah, it's true. Like, there's never an episode where Toph isn't super funny or super badass or any like. It doesn't ever not happen. Yeah, let's break some rules and blowing out the wall. Toph is win. What's the next thing? Toph. Oh, another one. Toph putting up the poster the wrong way. When Sokka's like, okay, Toph, you guys go. Toph, come with me. Wait, because I'm blind, you think I can't put posters up? And she puts it on backwards. It's like, it's upside down, isn't it? I guess I'll just go with Sokka. That's so fucking funny. What's the one? Oh, Toph, the lie detecting thing. She's like, when they're like, was this guy your boyfriend? No.
They straight took that from Daredevil. Yeah, that's some classic Daredevil shenanigans there.
It still works for Toph. I can tell you're lying.
Well, I mean, of course it works for Toph. She's basically the same character. Yeah. She's basically like a sassy version of Daredevil.
And what's the other thing? Later, she's like, Toph, I forgot this was so funny because I hadn't watched this episode so much. But when Katara goes, I have a surprise for everybody, and Toph goes, I knew it. You did have a secret thing with Haru. And everybody's just like, what the fuck? And like, Toph is so excited about that. Like, why did Toph want that bad? Like, that was hilarious. That
feel when Toph is also an overzealous shipper?
Yeah, when Toph is a shipper, like she told the audience, she's also a crazy shipper. They also use her in a powerful way when they have her saying that Jet is lying. And I remember there's actually a thing like in a commentary or something later where the creators are like, we weren't allowed to show a death because of Nickelodeon, but we wanted Jet to actually die. And so Toph saying that he was lying was how we confirmed that Jet died. So I mean, they used that in a pretty cool way. What was another one? So, Toph. I don't trust the new positive Sokka. Long Flang brainwashed you, didn't he? Or I've seen enough of Boston say, and I can't even see. Or when when the Earth King is like riding with them. First time flying, it's both exhilarating and terrifying. Yeah, I hate it too. I don't know what it is. She's never not funny. She's always hilarious. But
that's why she's probably my favorite character in anything ever.
I have to agree with that. Toph is just the best. She's my favorite character in anything of all time. I love Toph so much. She's the best. And like I said, and they give her a good vulnerable side too, like where she thinks her mom actually came to talk to her, and instead she gets captured. Like, oh, that's heart-wrenching, man. Like, you gotta feel bad for her there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places where you gotta really feel bad for her.
It's like, just personality-wise, it's like Callie, if Callie was in Blake's role in the plot and was also Daredevil.
Yeah, that's true. She's as lovable and adorable as Callie. She's as sarcastic and hilarious as Toph, and she's just more badass than anybody else too. She's got everything, and she has a good vulnerable side. You actually feel sorry for her. You feel for her, and she's not overly OP, so she's not hateable in any way either. That's the other thing, is like they don't give you a reason to think she's too much of anything, you know, because she's not always sarcastic. She is most of the time, and she's hilarious when she is. It's not overdone. They rein her in. That's the great thing about the show that they do. Oh, another one. If you've seen nothing once, you've seen it 1,000 times. And also Toph, like, I love Toph's overconfidence too, when she's like, the worst thing about being undercover is not boring us anymore. I miss the love. She, the admiration of when she was Blind Bandit and stuff like that. They keep that there. Oh yeah, that was the thing. That was the comment when this is when Sokka was still feeling down about it. So I was like, when Aang goes, and who keeps us amused with sarcastic comments? And I'm like, and I literally say, lol. It's that I don't understand that because that's been Toph doing it the whole time. I said, actually, it's Toph who does that. So, yeah, it's Toph actually ends up being the funniest character and the most badass character. And the audience's view. And a lot of times the one I feel the most sorry for.
Yeah, so, again, like, she's just the best.
She's just the fucking best, man. Oh yeah, and Sokka and Aang forget. They write a letter to fix the thing between Toph and Katara, and Katara gets the letter. She's like, Toph can't. I know this is from you, Sokka. Toph can't read. Oh well, we could just send a letter to Toph. I think we're gonna have the same problem. How could we forget that Toph is blind?
Oh yeah.
But again, like they have her moments like Katara when she says to Sokka, Katara cares about me, the real me. That's more than my own mom. Like that's really cool. Like the lines like that are really cool. Oh yeah, this is another great one I totally forgot about. When they're having the ghost stories and like the ghost stories aren't all that impressive, and Toph goes, Water Tribe slumber parties must stink. She's such a fucking dick, and I love it. I forgot about that line for the longest time.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up talking about Toph.
It's hard to stop talking about Toph. It's really hard not to. I could just go back and just talk about Toph. We actually might be able to work Toph into another podcast if we do like favorite characters of all time podcast. Yeah. I think we should do that, to be honest.
Just to give us an excuse.
Because Toph will be number one again. She'll just be number one for both of us, and it'll be great. I would totally do that.
So let's talk. We've kind of touched on this already, but let's kind of talk impact. You already talked about how like this is what got you into writing and got you into anime again.
Yeah, this combined with Harry Potter was my first like big spark though, and Ruby was like my second spark actually.
Yeah, I don't think it had as much of a creative impact on me.
It did for me, absolutely.
Just because I mean, by the time I had even really sat down and watched it, Naruto was a big thing in my life already, so I already got the like magical elemental martial arts teenager thing from that.
Yeah.
But I think this is kind of one of those series that overall impact on entertainment. This is one of the shows that like really blurred the line between Western and Eastern animation. It came out around the same time as like Samurai Jack and Teen Titans, which were also doing kind of the same thing. And it came out in that like really sweet spot, that like early to mid 2000s, where just everything anime on television was just absolute gold.
Yeah. And it's what's really impressive is even amongst that, it stands out as probably the best. It's that
yeah.
That's what's crazy impressive about it. It's that even in all that, it stood out that well. And the thing is, Korra is still actually a very good show. I've watched all of Korra. It's a very good show. But they can't follow it up because it's not the same thing. Like it didn't have the same the same planning of what Avatar had, of that whole, the fact that they knew basically everything that they were going to do, and they had everything so well planned out, is a large part of what made this show so good. I think.
Begin with the end in mind.
Some of the small things that changed were like Katara's name. Kaya was her original name, and it changed to Katara. In the pilot, her name was Kaya. And that's why they had her mom's name Kaya, and that's why her daughter's name was Kaya. And Toph was originally going to be a boy, and that's why her name Toph was so ambiguous as to gender. Toph was originally going to be a guy, but then they realized they needed to add another girl to the group because if Katara was the only girl in Team Avatar, that would have been kind of weird, and I actually agree with that.
Oh yeah, just SpongeBob principle, choking girl.
It's a good reason to add a girl without like SJW bullshit, and also help because like I said, Toph's my first and only waifu, so thank you for making Toph a girl for that reason. But yeah, impact on me was absolutely massive. It came out while I was watching this was right around the time Harry Potter was finishing up actually too. So I mean, for me, like those are the two biggest things that had an impact on me in terms of fiction and writing and things like that. And what really turned me on to loving TV and fiction and books and fantasy as much as I do were those two things together at the same time. I just gotta see when Deathly Hallows the book came out.
Yeah. For me, it was always more like Avatar was just a really solid, outstanding example of things I was already into. Like I was already into a lot of that stuff by the time I ever bothered watching Avatar.
So, Avatar was first published in 2005. So I started watching it, I think, in 2006. And that was right in the middle of when I was crazy binging the fuck out of Harry Potter. Now, I had read it before, but I knew that between when Harry Potter 6 and when Harry Potter 7 came out. So Harry Potter 6 came out, what year? 2005. There you go. I mean, the timing's crazy. Between when Harry Potter 6 came out and when I believe I read through the entire book series at least twice before Harry Potter. And then a third time total when Harry Potter 7 came out. I actually then blitzed the whole thing again. So that was right in when I was crazy into Harry Potter, I was crazy into Avatar at the same time. Harry Potter was for a longer period of time. Avatar was much shorter, but those like 2006 2007 time frame was like insane for me. And those
that would have been around. Yeah, that would have been the same time I was kind of more into sports.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, I wasn't as into TV in like 2006, 2007. I was getting into video games and I was getting into comic books. But as far as like movies and TV, not so much in that time period.
So here's another thing, and I'll get a little bit more vulnerable here for like myself actually. So Avatar came around when I really needed it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I'll be honest. I've had a very easy life overall. I'm upper middle class. I'm above average intelligence. I'm not trying to brag, but it's just like school was not hard for me overall. I didn't have to study much in college, and I graduated magna cum laude. It was not that difficult for me. I don't have to. I've never really had to work that hard for a lot of things in life. I'll be perfectly honest. But when the two most difficult times in my life were when I was a kid in like first and second, third grade. I was actually very, very, very depressed and almost suicidal. I got over that. And then between the end of eighth grade, basically through the beginning of sophomore year of high school. Through sophomore year of high school was very, very difficult for me. That's when it's kind of similar to you. I was more into sports at the time, and I kind of fell out of sports at that time, and it was very difficult for me then. And I was struggling with like friends at the time, and a lot of girl problems at that time in my life, and difficulty dealing with my family because my dad was very pro sports, and at that time I was kind of didn't want to do sports anymore, and that was very difficult family wise for me. So freshman year of high school I was not in a good place. So Avatar was when I got into Avatar was at that time, and that was a really big deal for me. And I think that's a huge reason to why I latched on to Avatar and Harry Potter so much. Also, it helps that they're also genuinely really good. But
I think Naruto was that for me. Like when I was going through like a really rough time, like in middle school when I had like I had stopped watching Cartoon Network most of the time. I kind of stopped being into movies for a few years, and Naruto was kind of like the thing that kind of rekindled my imagination for storytelling and all that stuff in very much the same way.
Yeah, I think, and for me, one thing I noticed is, so that was the first time I started writing fan fiction. There have been 3 distinct times in my life when I've actually had a decent writing period, and I've noticed it kind of sucks that it's only when I'm depressed. So the first time is during that time when I was really struggling, like with relationships in general, and it was really bothering me. So that was really hard for me. I was having problems with like myself, like not doing sports anymore with my family, all that stuff. That was not a good time for me. Freshman year of high school was really difficult and stressful too. And so that's when I fell in love with Avatar, started writing fan fiction. Second time when I started writing a lot was freshman year of college. I had been in a relationship with my then girlfriend, now fiance, since sophomore year of high school, and I was away from for college for 2 years, and so I was extremely depressed at that time too. So that's when I wrote a lot also. And then the third time was when I started working after college and had a lot of problems there too. So adjusting to that. So those are all the times I've written, and so there's always been kind of something that's carried me through all of those things. Ruby's the one right now that's carrying me through that thing, but it was Harry Potter and
I plan on going into a lot of detail on this during my stream Friday, which if you guys are still watching this, definitely check that out. Even if if you're not able to make it, leave comments on this video or any of my other videos. I always check all my videos regularly. Leave comments and questions, and I'll answer them, and then you can watch that whenever you have the time. But I do plan on getting in depth on like my history as a writer and the role that Ruby played in that my story. Ruby is what convinced me that like no, your stories are good enough. Like that's kind of a dick way to put it, but it really was like no, your stories are worth telling. People will listen. People will like it. Like there's reviews I've gotten for like Ruby on and stuff that have just like, and anytime that Kitty Kirishima has made art for me, like the first 2 times that she did, like I'd never even like actually talked to her at all, and I just logged into Facebook those respective mornings and saw the fan art of Ruby, and I was just like it almost made me cry. Like I was just like, oh man, like people actually like my stuff. That just cool boggles me that people actually read my stuff regularly. Like I get like the same. Like I know that Ruby on Home isn't gonna have a really large audience. It's the sequel to an OC Kid story that went on for 130 chapters, and so the only people who are reading it are people who have read a lot of my other stuff already and are just like, oh yeah, this is new stuff from Mediocrity 4, whatever, I'll read it. So it's the same like 5 people that are commenting and reviewing every single chapter, and it's like I feel like I have a relationship with these people and with like you guys on the Discord, and like I know you haven't read like all my stuff. You've read some of it, and you love just like casually.
I do enjoy the ones that I really like.
And same thing with a lot of people who comment on my YouTube videos, like Ramikas, I think if I'm pronouncing that right, and Scarlet Curls, who was on our Facebook page. Robert, anybody who's been on the podcast, like I feel like you guys are the best 304 people I have ever had any kind of contact with.
Yeah, no, it's been helpful to me too, and I think Ruby was a big thing for me too. It's kind of a similar thing in that like the inspiration for me was when I watched Volume 3 and I really connected with that one a lot more than the first two. And I saw the improvement. I think that was the big thing. It's still not perfect, obviously. We know that. But it was a massive step up from the first two. And that was a big thing for me. And that's when I actually started first writing the book that I'm still working on right now. And I'm putting a lot of time and effort into writing that right now. So
yeah, I got something deep in the files of my computer that I haven't really touched in over a year. That I'm just like, I'm not good enough to do it yet. I'm not ready.
Yeah, I'm working on mine now. It's slowly, but like I did take a kind of a year to like think about it again when I had to redo it. I kept the characters and redid the plot line. Not exactly the plot line, but the setting was a big change. But yeah, I mean, Avatar was the first thing that got me into writing anything in the first place. That and Harry Potter at the same time. But Avatar was the one that I really got into the fandom. So that was the first big thing. And I would say RWBY's kind of the second big catalyst. It's not as good as Avatar, obviously, but it still was in the right place at the right time and push the right buttons. And it does do some of the things that I like very well. Like
I said this in the comment section of one of my recent videos where someone was I think it was actually my review for I've had a really busy week on YouTube this week. It's been overly productive with the podcast we did. We recorded Sunday, I uploaded that Tuesday, and then I had tutoring, so I had classroom observations at an elementary school down the street. And then I got back, I finished up my review for Welcome to Haven, and then I hit that 300 subscriber mark with that video. And then I did the most recent video, which is My Hero Academia Opening 3, but it's RWBY.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing this, and this is going to get uploaded pretty much as soon as we're done. Because I don't have to worry about spoiler ban like I do with RWBY.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, Avatar's over and it's the best.
Yeah. And so, it, like, can't remember where I was going with all... Oh, and I also got the stream Friday to kind of celebrate 300 subscribers.
Oh, that's right, you have that too.
Yeah. It's
be
just
there
been...
if I'm not doing something else already. But I might
yeah,
be doing
it's
something else
just
already.
been... It's just been a really wonderful experience. And I'm really thankful for the people I have in my life. And, but anyway, what I was saying is, in the comment section of that video for the Welcome to Haven, there was someone who talked about how RWBY got them into animation. And why they, like, inspired them to become an animator. And basically, one of the things I said to them was, like, yeah, there's always been this kind of Me Too aspect to RWBY, where, like, you see the thing, and because it's still indie, because it's mostly on YouTube and Rooster Teeth's website, but I think more people watch it on YouTube. Like, even people who watch on Rooster Teeth's site will rewatch it on YouTube. And watch, like, reaction videos, which I kind of count as rewatching it as well. They see it and they're like, I can do that. If they can do it, I can do it. If Miles can become a successful writer, anyone can become a successful writer.
It's true. Yeah, I mean, if Stephanie Meyer, I actually give her more credit because I think she wrote crap on purpose.
Well, there's always something inherently trashy about Twilight.
Yeah.
Not necessarily inherently crap or inherently bad, but there's always something like, hee hee hee, this is all kind of trashy and exploitative.
Well, the big one is if E.L. James.
Yeah, which that's just fan fiction.
That's worse than Miles is infinitely.
There's actually a lot of Star Wars books I'd kind of put on that. It never gets as bad as like Twilight or 50 Shades of Grey, but there's a lot of stuff. As a Star Wars fan and as a fan of the expanded universe, there's a lot of Star Wars books that are just like fan fiction level.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
Personally, I'm actually one of the people that thinks it was good that Disney 86.
Same.
Because there's way too much bullshit. The Yuuzhan Vong thing, so retarded.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna talk about why I don't like the Vong when we talk about Return of the Jedi. Because Return of the Jedi kind of ended that whole saga so completely, and the Vong were just kind of a rehash of the Empire. So I think we're ready to wrap it up. We've been going for almost 3 hours.
Yeah. Toph is so good. I could talk for so much.
Yeah. Yeah, and we went on like lot of divergent pathways without high-powered here to wrangle us in.
Yeah, well, it's kind of fun to do that though. It's more natural, and I think people generally appreciate stuff like that. So most podcasts don't really talk about their subject either. So I think that's okay.
Most podcasts don't have a subject. It's just like this happened this week.
Well, that's what the Cox and Crendor show is. They just have a format. They just talk about news and shit and random stories, which is still funny because those two guys are funny. But they don't really have a subject either. It's just a format.
Yeah. So final verdict on Avatar: 10 out of 10. Stronger than the sum of its parts. One of the best shows ever made.
Yep. One of the best shows ever. Zuko is one of the best fictional characters ever, and Toph is still my all-time favorite character from anything ever. She's just the best.
Yep, so consider this a light recommendation.
If you haven't watched
Avatar yet, you probably already have.
It doesn't matter how old you are, you will appreciate it.
Yeah, there's a lot to like. So I'm gonna end it off with plugins. Again, like, comment, like, comment, subscribe. I'd like to keep that number flowing because that's just more people I'm making a connection with, and just more incentive to really put a lot of time and effort into this, and support my Patreon. I don't plug that enough. I don't like to ask people for money. I don't even like to ask like my family or friends for money, which is why I don't like plug my Patreon a lot. But it's there if you ever feel inclined. It's always there in the description. Same thing with the Facebook page. And from the Facebook page, you can always get onto the Discord and maybe even join in on the discussions. Maybe not be on the podcast, but you'll certainly like contribute to the conversation.
If you were smart and contribute as much as Robert, then you can make it.
Yeah.
But...
Well, we freaking went in, like him and Kitty Kirishima. Yeah. We like went after hard. Like, you gotta join the Discord. Gotta join the Discord.
Yeah, that's true. We actually went after.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of big voice discussions when new episodes come out and things like that. So
yeah, that too. We talk mostly about RWBY. If you're here for something other than RWBY, congratulations. Because man, I did not want to be just a RWBY channel, which is why I'm loving the fact that we were able to do this and that we're going to continue to do this with other movies and TV shows. Because I did not want to just be a RWBY channel, but that's like the only thing people ever seem to watch.
So actually, are we doing Star Wars next Wednesday? The first
yes.
one? Is that what we're
we're going to do A New Hope.
Right.
We're just going to do A New Hope.
So I'm going to have to go watch that one. Actually, I think I'm going to buy like all Star Wars movies.
Yeah, I have them all.
So
what else fan fiction, I've mentioned RWBY on before. Links are always in the description. Just check the description for all the stuff I have to plug. And until then, have a good night. I never know how to close these things out.
It was fun.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun, and I hope you join us next time. For the next podcast, we will be talking about Volume 5, Episode 2, and then the next podcast after that, the next Beyond podcast, we are talking about Star Wars. Just Star Wars, just 1977.
Just Star Wars.
Yeah.
1977 Star Wars.
Yeah. Or if you want to be more specific, Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. So, until then, thanks for watching.